Lear studied industrial design at the Art Center College in Los Angeles. He has written extensively about airplanes and other subjects, was Middle East correspondent from Combat Illustrated between 1975 and 77 while stationed in Beirut. And astronomer. Several photography awards for travels. In the early 70s, John Lear owned and skippered the 12-meter America's Cup boat Soliloquy out of Marina del Rey. His interest in UFOs began after reading Bud Hopkins' book, Missing Time. Then, a chance encounter with a U.S. Air Force pilot who was at a base in England where an extraterrestrial craft landed in December of 1980. In 1988, John met a government scientist who worked on a back engineering program of recovered extraterrestrial flying saucers for the Department of Naval Intelligence at a secret base within the Nevada test site known only as S4. This scientist not only explained how these craft traveled many times faster than the speed of light, but in March of 1989 took John to a remote desert location to watch the Navy test fly one of those extraterrestrial craft. John, who no longer gives lectures on the subject of UFOs, and has no plans, incidentally, to write a book, is currently a DC-8 captain with a major cargo carrier, has 4 daughters, and lives in Las Vegas with his wife, Mara Lee. So that's a pretty full plate for anybody's life, I would say, and a little fuller than mine has been, certainly, and I think most. In just one moment, we'll get to John Lear, and I think you'll find him more than just a little fascinating. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here comes John Lear. John, well, wait a minute. Let me put you on hold there and bring you up here. John, it's been a long time since we've had you on the program. Welcome back.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it sure has been. It's been, what, over a year?
At least that long, John. And the network in that time has grown magnificently. I think we've gone from about 28 stations to about 120.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, we've come a long way, baby. Well, anyway, John, you've done a lot in your life, haven't you?
Yeah, a little bit here and there.
It's been awfully busy. I mean, this is quite a resume you've got, and that's a lot to do in a life. And then all of a sudden, at some point, you decided to mix into all of this, which is enough for about 2 people normally, and you got involved in UFOs.
Yes, involuntarily, I might add.
Involuntarily. Well, look, we'll get to that. You've done something kind of interesting. You've given me this timeline, and I do appreciate it. I would like to go back over the history a little bit with you, John, and pick your brain about what you know about the incidents that you have listed for me. Did modern ufology really begin about 1947?
Yeah, it really did with the Ken Arnold sightings, but now there's been a lot that happened before that. There was a recovery, I think in 1941, I think in Arizona, and there was a lot of activity during World War II, but really modern ufology started in 1947 with the recovery, well, first with Ken Arnold sighting up in Seattle, I think it was, and then and then the recovery of the craft in Roswell, New Mexico.
Well, I'm not familiar with the Arnold sighting.
Well, the Ken Arnold sighting was when he saw those 9 discs flying through the air. He was out on a search and rescue mission, and he saw these discs. And when he landed, the reporters wanted to know what he saw, and he said, "Well, they look kind of like saucers," and that was the first coining of the term flying saucers.
Ah.
And this happened like in late June of 1947, and coincidentally, just like a week later, was this recovery of the craft in Roswell.
Well, I say modern ufology. Really, there have been sightings, I suppose, for as long as man has been around to record them, haven't there?
Yeah, at least there's just hundreds of references in the Bible, and before that, Chinese and Indian records record saucers, up to 4,000 or 5,000 years ago.
Okay, now to Roswell very quickly. I interviewed the author of the book, The Truth About the UFO Crash at Roswell the other day, and he did a pretty good job of documenting what I guess is, would you say it is the best documentation of something that has happened?
Yeah, it probably is, other than, of course, well, no, that's right, it is.
It is. And I know you've looked at Roswell. I guess it's probably one of the first things that you studied when you jumped into all this. What kind of conclusions did you draw about it, John?
Well, at that time, 1985, when I first got into this, I think there was over 200 witnesses that were still alive that had either touched or loaded or seen the craft and the bodies. And a good portion of those people are still alive now, but there was just overwhelming evidence that this occurred.
What actually supposedly happened? Was what is the best guess? Was there a collision? Did it blow up? Does anybody speculate about what happened to this craft?
There's theories, and I don't think it's so much so important as what happened, the fact that it did happen. Now, some people say there was 2 craft, and one landed and one crashed on the Magdalena Flats, about 100 miles east of Roswell, and then there was a craft, the portions of the craft that landed on the Brazil Ranch there near Corona. But whatever did happen, they certainly collected a large amount of debris, and there was a lot of people involved in this effort. But what was so interesting is the preparedness of the military to deal with this. There was no confusion. They knew exactly what to do. They knew exactly what they had, and that it must be kept a secret. And they were very well prepared for this.
So that would indicate to you, I guess, that they had some knowledge of what was going on, or some interaction prior to that.
They had advanced knowledge that there was a probability or possibility that this could happen, and they were very well prepared for it.
All right. Also in that same timeline, 1947, the establishment, the original establishment of MJ-12, and the MJ-12 documents, which I've seen, John. Do you view those as legitimate?
The information is legitimate, not necessarily the documents. President Truman certainly formed MJ-12 on September 24th, 1947. There's enough evidence in government documents that he did have a meeting with certain people and did form this body, which, of course, has been in charge ever since.
What was the job of MJ-12? Did it have? It had a charter, right? What was it supposed to do?
The charter of MJ-12 was basically to research the craft, determine what it was made of, whether there was a threat to this country, and to determine what should be done to tell, if at all, the public about what was going on.
Mm-hmm. So they kind of were the overseers of all this.
Yeah, they were, and they are the overseers. The original 12 that were appointed by Truman. The last one that died, I think it was 1983, and that was former Secretary of the Army, Gordon Gray. He was the last member. As to who is involved or a member of MJ-12 today, we can only speculate. I really don't know, but...
Well, since that time, there must have been many members. In other words, people die, people retire, people get sick, all kinds of things. So if it's... Are you saying it's still in place today?
Yes, MJ-12 certainly is in place, and they have, they would have had to replace the original 12. I don't think it would be more than 30 were probably ever involved.
People talk, John, about this current administration, the Clinton administration, and how open they've been with the nuclear, the tests that were done, the awful things that were done. And they have hopes that they will also be open about UFOs and maybe tell us what's going on. What do you think?
Never. When I first got into what they call ufology, and I think it's a dumb name, but when I first got interested in this and realized the overwhelming impact of what was going on and the cover-up that had been in place for so many years, I got up on my soapbox and did lectures and said, "Hey, you got to listen to me. There's something going on here that we should all be aware of." And then that was like 1985. And now in September of 1994, I believe that the government was correct to cover it up. And as short as 3 or 4 years ago, I still thought they were planning to gradually release the information so that the public would, not panic, but accept this. And now I don't think they ever had any intention of doing that, and I don't think they have today. And as odd as it may sound, I kind of go along with it. I believe that the public does not have a need to know. They certainly don't have a right to know. There's so many aspects to this thing that would really disrupt public life as we know it, that I don't think they had any intention of doing it. The only reason that they would maybe be forced to do it is if there was a crash or a landing that absolutely could possibly not be denied. And they have facilities and teams in place to prevent things like that ever happening. There have been saucers that have crashed very, very near to cities, and it's been completely covered up. They have teams that go out, and it's their business to be sure that the public never finds out. And if this includes relocating personnel or even terminating personnel that have seen this unauthorized, either accidental or on purpose, they go to that extent.
Well, I do know this. There have been crashes here near us, John. I'm to the west of you, and you know what I'm near.
Yeah.
And there have been crashes out here, and it's true, the public would never know. They get these areas quickly cordoned off, and you don't get anywhere near it. And, it's wreckage, and it could be anything. And so who knows? If a saucer did come down, they could get control of it very quickly, just like that, couldn't they?
Exactly. I heard one that landed, didn't crash, but landed just maybe a few miles outside of downtown Albuquerque. And these teams are located all over the United States. They're in underground facilities. They have helicopters. They have people who are technicians and heavy equipment operators who have passes and authority to go to any civilian or military base and drive right off with this heavy equipment. And their job is to go and keep this from being seen. And one of the first things they do is they have these portable walls that are put in place. And then they secure the area. If it's like near a freeway, what they can do is have a heavy truck purposely have a wreck right there to block the freeway several miles from the crash.
Wow.
Or the landing. They can also start fires. They do really interesting things to keep the people from seeing them. Anyway, they erected these portable walls around this thing, and everybody stood around trying to figure out what to do. I think it was there for about 5 hours, and then all of a sudden it just left.
Huh.
And nobody got out. There was no communication, and it just left.
All right. We're very efficient in this country at doing this kind of thing, and I don't doubt that for a second. I've seen it myself. But, John, they come down all over the world. Or at least you would think they come down all over the world. So what about other countries less prepared to make it all a big secret?
We go in and with money, we say, we need to have this craft, and here's so many millions of dollars. Be sure that nobody ever finds out about it. We had a recovery in Bolivia, one in Argentina, one in South Africa just a very few years ago. All over the world, except for Russia. We didn't have any control over those, and I don't know how that happened. I mean, I don't know what happened in Russia, if there was any crashes there, if there was any recoveries there. So,
what in 1948, the Aztec recovery, possible EBE-1. What does all that mean? The Mantell incident.
Aztec recovery was a saucer crash in Aztec, New Mexico, and they recovered a few bodies from that one. It's not sure where they got their first live alien, but they were named EBEs, extraterrestrial biological entities, by Dr. Detlef Bronk, who was one of the first members of MJ-12. At some point in that 47, 48, 49, they recovered their first live alien. The Mantell incident is separate from that. That was the P-51 crash piloted by Thomas Mantell over, I'm trying to think, it was in Kentucky, and he got up to about 30,000 feet. He was on clear communication, and he said, "I have it in sight. It's enormous, a thing of tremendous size." And then the next thing they knew, this P-51 crashed in the field. It was completely disintegrated. There are stories that Mantell's body was not in the crash, but I don't know for sure. But that was the Mantell incident, and that occurred in the same year as the Aztec recovery.
How many bodies totally do you think they've recovered?
From between 50 to 100, representing at least 5 different civilizations. They're all on cryogenic storage. One of the interesting things here is in 1972, the only civilian that I know that ever got to see the bodies was Jackie Gleason, and he was a very big supporter of Nixon's, and they were out playing golf down there in Miami in 1972, and Jackie Gleason, as not many people know, was one of the, he had a tremendous interest in flying saucers, and he had one of the biggest civilian collections of books and memorabilia and pictures and stuff like that.
No, I didn't know that.
In upstate New York, his house was built in the shape of a saucer, and he called it the mothership.
Oh.
Anyway, in a conversation with Nixon, he said, was any chance of getting to see the bodies? And Nixon said, yeah, sure. They finished their golf game. They went over and got in the presidential helicopter, and they went to Homestead Air Force Base, which was right near the where they were playing, and golf, and he was shown the bodies.
John, you were talking about Jackie Gleason and said that Richard Nixon took him from a golf course to go see the aliens?
Right, at Homestead Air Force Base, and the reason we know this is his second wife wrote a book describing the incident, how he came home that night, and he was all pale, and she said, "My God, what's the matter?" And he said, "Well, get me a drink and I'll tell you." So she got him a drink, and he sat down. He said, the most interesting thing happened to me today, and went on to relate the incident about how he had seen the bodies. And this book was never published, but in the manuscript, this is how it was.
Wow. And so he actually got to see the bodies at Homestead?
Homestead Air Force Base, right.
Huh.
That was one of the places that they had the cryogenic storage and display for people who were authorized to see the displays, like certain world leaders, certain political people.
Are they still there now?
I don't know.
Well, surely we do still have bodies, don't we?
Certainly. We still have them all.
And no idea where they might be?
No.
I have heard some rumors lately, John, that there might be some bodies here in Nevada somewhere. Not, Area 51-ish, but somewhere else here in Nevada. Have you heard that?
Could very well be. There's a lot of things here in Nevada, and there's a lot of secret places, not only the Nevada test site, but there's a lot of other places right close here at Nellis Air Force Base. There's a place they call Area 2, which is the nuclear bomb storage area, but part of that area is called, I think they call it the Q area, or Area Q, and there's a lot of pieces and bits and parts stored there.
Area Q, that's one I've never heard of. All right, there are so many incidents we could talk about. There was one recovery, I guess, in 1950 in Mexico, across from Del Rio. Is that right?
Right, it crashed about 30 miles across the border, and we went over and actually dragged it 30 miles to Del Rio. And up until maybe 10 or 15 years ago, people that had researched that incident said you could still see the drag marks of where they had pulled it across.
Wow. And I've heard about this before, John. In Washington, D.C., it is true then that for a couple of weekends in a row, back in 1952, they actually had flying saucers over Washington, D.C. They were photographed by the press?
Yeah, they were photographed, and they saw them both on FAA radar and Air Force radar. As a matter of fact, you could go down to the library and pull out those weekend editions, I think, of the Washington Post, and there's stories all over it. And then I think the third weekend, the Air Force released a story, and I think it was the largest press conference of the decade, and they said that it had been a temperature inversion which caused this.
Oh.
And, naturally, the press bought it. And
well, it says here the press got photographs. How do you photograph a temperature inversion?
Well, that's a good question.
So I've never seen the photographs. What do they look like?
Well, the photographs were, of course, confiscated. They had a very good machine in place for dealing with the press and for dealing anybody who had photographs. They still do. Now, once in a while, you'll see a photograph of a bright light in the sky, but you won't see any real good photographs because somehow they get all of those.
Then there was a recovery near Johannesburg, South Africa, back in '53, and I sort of vaguely remember something about that, John. What happened?
Well, there was one then. I don't know too much about that, but there was one also several years ago that...
yeah, maybe that's the one I remember.
That supposedly crashed, and we sent one of our... they have the recovery teams with the C-5As, and they go over there and they load it up and bring it back to wherever. Some say Wright-Patterson, some say out here at Groom Lake.
All right, and then the first official meeting in 1954, supposedly, between Eisenhower and the aliens at Muroc Dry Lake, is that correct?
Yeah, and as ridiculous as this may sound, there's very good evidence that did occur, and Muroc was the original name of Edwards Air Force Base. It was later named after Glenn Edwards, who I think crashed in a flying wing there. But it was called Muroc, and Eisenhower was vacationing at the time in Palm Springs, and he was called to Edwards by the military, and the press was given the story that he had to attend an emergency session with a dentist as a cover. But in fact, this is when the meeting occurred, and Eisenhower essentially told these people that the world was not ready to see them or be aware of them, and that's where it stood until the Holloman encounter of 1964. But later, the dentist was interviewed and said, no, he didn't have an appointment with me. So the cover story was started to unravel.
All right. By 1956, with more recoveries having been done, the first human mutilation occurred, is that correct? Yeah,
well, the first one that they knew about, and that was in the Grudge 13 report that Bill English read, and it was Jonathan P. Lovett, who was a tech sergeant out on the Holloman Range, and he and a captain were out there recovering some missile debris about 3 o'clock in the morning, and as the story goes, Lovett went over this hill to where there was kind of a bright shining light, and the captain called after him and didn't hear any response, and he went up to the hill and saw this disc with kind of a snake-like arm coming out of it, and it had grabbed Lovett, who was kicking and screaming, and dragged him in this saucer. The captain, who was petrified, got back in his Jeep and went back to the base. And he was, in fact, charged with murder because there was no body. But about 10 days later, they recovered the body. It was about 10 miles downrange. And I won't go into the details, but it was horribly mutilated. Just use your imagination of how bad it could be, and it was worse than that.
In 1957, John, you say there was the prohibition of the word space in the media.
For about 10 months, the media was not allowed to use the word space in any of their stories.
Why?
And that was they didn't want the public to be thinking or be aware about anything in space. This was before Sputnik had gone up, and you have to understand at that time the government was just petrified about this whole thing with human mutilations and saucers crashing all over the place. And they didn't want the public thinking about the possibility of anything other than terrestrial stuff.
John, while we're on the subject of mutilations, Linda Howe, who does this show with me on Sunday called Dreamland, concentrates a lot on animal mutilations, and I just got an article from somebody. It came in the Associated Press article, and with a local kind of angle to it in the Albuquerque Journal dated Sunday, August 14th, so it's brand new. There are cattle mutilations going on like crazy right now in northern New Mexico, and they really are odd, John. High heat used, genitals and tongues and so forth and so on removed, all that sort of thing going on, and it's going on massively now in northern New Mexico. Are the cattle mutilations related in any way to the human mutilations?
I don't know, but they do the same thing. They core out the rectum. They take the genitals. They carve the eyes out. They follow the same pattern. We had a very interesting incident happen here in Nevada. If you'll remember, in 1990, there was the big story about 128 sheep that were found dead in central Nevada.
Yes, I recall.
Well, the interesting thing is that area was sealed off from all reporters and researchers, and no pictures were ever released, and no independent inspection was done. And after the initial interest, there was only one story done by a reporter in Reno. This reporter never went near the horses or the site, but relied mainly on unsubstantiated reports from the authorities. And he wrote that the horses were killed by rifle bullets fired from persons who were charged, but then later released for insufficient evidence.
Right.
And this reporter received the Pulitzer Prize for his report.
Huh. If you had to hazard a guess with regard to all these cattle mutilations, what do you think's being done?
I don't know. It has to do with genetic experimentation. Those particular parts of the body, I think they use it, hormones, secretions, that kind of thing, for whatever their experiments are.
Well, there are people who suggest that it's our own government, that our government is somehow doing it. But it wouldn't make sense to me that our government would feel a need or would even have a need to raid anybody's cattle farm.
Well, certainly if it was our own government, they would do it a little bit more discreetly. There's no question in my mind that we do some of that, but the major portion of it is done by someone else.
Well, you'd think the government could get cattle if they need cattle.
Certainly, they could have a farm, and they wouldn't leave the bodies lying around just to invite speculation. All
right. The explosion over Nevada that you talked about, then a recovery of a craft in New Mexico in 1962.
Yeah, I was just trying to find a copy of that of the Las Vegas Sun. Had a front page story of this explosion, and it occurred. It was seen all over Nevada, but apparently a part of it crashed in Mesquite, and apparently that was one of the first test flights that our government made in a recovered extraterrestrial craft. And because of the disastrous outcome of it, there was no more testing until 1972. But apparently that was us trying to fly one of the extraterrestrial craft.
Okay, is that one of them that had crashed, or was one turned over to us in some way? Or
all I can tell you is it was acquired. Now, whether it crashed and it was good enough working order to fly, or whether it was turned over to us as one of the ones that Linda Howe talks about at Hill Air Force Base in Utah. Everybody wakes up one morning and there's cases where we had to quickly cover it up and take it somewhere, but it was just sitting there on the ramp. Now, who gave it to us? I don't know, but it was just there.
Boy, it's so hard to fill in the blanks sometimes. The Holloman incident in 1964, an agreement in the late 60s, the building of Dulce, recovery near Fort Riley, Kansas. That was a busy year.
Yeah, that was the Holloman incident was documented by Sandler Productions. The film that was released in 1973, and that was actually supposedly the first attempt by the government to release information to the public. And they approached Sandler Films, who was a CIA front in Los Angeles, to write a documentary outlining the history of UFOs and to end it with the actual film of the actual landing at Holloman, and that was going to be the final part of the film. Well, they got everything done. Emenager himself, Robert Emenager, who's a close friend, actually had 800 feet of this film in his house. He did not view the film, but he was given it to him by Paul Shartle, who was head of the audiovisual department at Norton Air Force Base, and Shartle watched the film in its entirety. And he says there's no question that it was a real film, and that it showed these three saucers coming down, one landing, the other two going away, and then three people coming out. They were humanoid, but slightly different than us. They had a weapon. And this film was supposed to be shown at the last part of the actual documentary. It was called UFOs Past, Present, and Future. At the last minute, the Pentagon withdrew the film and said, we want you to not use this film, but depict the end in terms of it may have happened. And so if you ever see a copy of this, you'll see Rod Serling, who does the narration, say, let's consider an incident that could happen in the future or already may have happened in the past. And in fact, it had happened. And that's how the film got released. But that was the incident, the Holloman incident that they talk about.
All right. What is Dulce, the building of Dulce?
Dulce was an underground base that's still active. It's on the Colorado-New Mexico border near the town of Dulce. It's completely underground. It's my understanding it's about 1,500 feet underground, and it's where supposedly the CIA and the aliens do joint genetic experiments. I've been out to Dulce. I've talked with Gabe Valdez, who is head of the Highway Patrol, New Mexico Highway Patrol, and his area was Dulce. I spent 2 evenings with him driving around the entire area, heard all his stories about all the craft he'd seen, and the evidence that Dulce was in fact there. And there's no question in my mind that it was there, and that it still is there. And there's a story that will come up later, what's called the Dulce incident, which happened in 1979 when we get up to that part of the timeline. All
right, and a recovery at Fort Riley, Kansas.
Yeah, there was either recovery or a landing, and several of the soldiers who were there watched it come down.
Then one near Kecksburg, Pennsylvania.
That's a very famous event. It's covered in a lot of these things like Hard Copy and Entertainment Tonight. They do the story on this every once in a while, but there was a recovery there of an acorn-shaped object, and there's quite a lot of evidence for that.
Boy, we must have a lot of artifacts stored somewhere, not just bodies, but discs and parts of discs and all the rest of it.
We do, and I was just reading a story here from one of the researchers at Stringfield. Talked about 4 military personnel who were engineers, and they were flown one night, 4 hours. I think they lived back near Wright Pat. They didn't know where they were being flown. They had to sign special security oaths. They say that after 4 hours they landed and they were blindfolded. They were taken out. They said when we stepped out it was like being in the desert. They weren't allowed to lift their blindfolds up. They went into this hangar, and the lights were turned on. They had blindfolds taken off, and they said this whole thing was full of all kinds of artifacts. And there was a quotes, a curator there, and they were allowed to inspect, and they were there for 4 days to inspect and speculate on what these items might be. And then after the 4 days, they said they could come back anytime they wanted if they had any fresh ideas, but they were not to discuss this incident with anybody.
How intriguing. Then there's 1967. This one's close to home. A big disc, a large disc, hovers over the Las Vegas school, it says, and children are sent home. Really?
Yeah, a friend of mine, matter of fact, Tabitha was, I think, one of the students there, and this disc hovered over the school, and the children were sent home, and they remember this incident quite clearly.
Huh.
I'm not sure whether it was her or somebody else, but that did happen in 1967, and along with that, there was a landing at Nellis Air Force Base where a saucer landed, and people got out, and a colonel who was there drew his weapon, and the colonel was paralyzed in place, and the weapon rendered inoperative, and a few minutes later they took off.
Well, John, we're about out of hour here, out of this hour, but I want to ask you, you have flown and flown and flown and flown. You've been in our skies, looked more into the skies than probably most of us. In all those zillions of hours, how many air hours do you have now, John? Do you know?
17,000.
17,000 hours.
Yeah.
In 17,000 hours, one would think if they're up there, you would have been one of the guys who would have seen one of them.
Well, let me tell you about flying. You're not sitting there looking out the window. You're looking at your instruments, particularly when you're flying jet aircraft. Now, at night, when it's more likely you're going to see something, you can't see outside because you've got the glow of the instruments inside, and you have to put your face up to get rid of all the cockpit reflections to do it, and it's something that doesn't happen.
So then, unless it was close and bright, you probably wouldn't see it.
No, you really wouldn't. And the only time that I ever saw anything, it's still interesting these days when I think about this incident. It never occurred to me. I was in a Lear jet. It was in the afternoon. I was descending from over Palm Springs. I was on a flight from Wichita to Los Angeles. I was descending through about 18,000. Let's see, how high would I have been? No,
John. I've never heard this story, so hold this story. We're now at the top of the hour. When we come back, we'll tell the story. Once again, my guest, John Lear, who has flown in jet aircraft for many, many thousands of hours, and pressed a little bit, now recalls one incident where he saw something or another. Anyway, John, when was it? What did you see?
Well, it was like 1966 or so, and I was descending in a Lear jet on a flight from Wichita to Los Angeles, and descending through like 30,000 feet. And I was headed westbound, and from my left to my right, I saw what I thought at the time was a NASA lifting body, that X-24 or one of those type things. Remember the one that the $6 million man crashed in?
I do, yes.
And that's what it looked like. And it went by, and I mentioned it to the co-pilot. When I landed, I distinctly remember calling Hank Beard, who was chief test pilot at Learjet, and I said, "Man, you'll never guess what I saw today." And he said, "What?" And I said, "A lifting body passed me." And only after, 25 or 30 years did I look back and say how ridiculous that was, because under no stretch of the imagination would a lifting body be in the main approach corridor for the Los Angeles International Airport.
Heavens no.
So I don't know what I saw, but in all my thousands of hours, I guess that's the only strange thing I ever saw.
That's it, huh? All right. There's so much history to go through here, John. I guess let's jump up to a violent encounter, supposedly, between UFO humanoids and the U.S. military at Lumberton, Ohio.
Yeah, there was two. There was one that happened in Cambodia and one that happened in Xenia, Ohio. The one at Xenia, Ohio, was an encounter between the occupants of an alien craft and a U.S. military detachment, and there was 11 American casualties and an unknown number of aliens. And one of the researchers met a guy who worked at the off-limits area at Wright Pat, who claims to have seen bodies on litters arriving at the base during that time frame.
Wow. As I go through the history, it is interesting in one respect. all of these occurrences, all of these witnesses, all of these bodies, how can it, well, of course it isn't really kept secret, because here we are talking about it, but still the official cloak of secrecy remains. How can that be?
It's great. They can keep a secret if they want to.
Well, you know, that's really true, and if anything, the revelations about the nuclear testing, I think, prove that. You know, how I can't imagine how our government could have kept secret the fact that they were feeding radiation to children, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But they did. All right. You mentioned Cambodia, a firefight between U.S. military and small gray humanoids?
Yeah, that was in April of 1972, and what happened is members of the U.S. Army Special Operations Group were involved in a firefight with the occupants of an identified alien craft. There were several alien casualties and a single human death, though several were burned by an unknown weapon. And what happened was this platoon happened on a group of aliens who were sorting human body parts into large bins and sealing them. A firefight ensued, and several of the aliens were killed and through headshots because the suits that they were wearing were essentially bulletproof. And as the soldiers pulled back, several of the aliens quickly packed as much as they could, got in this craft, and it took off. The unit was interrogated originally by military personnel and then by civilians who were identified as representatives of magic, and they are part of the Majestic group that go out and help cover these things up.
All right, looks like we're going to jump into the tough stuff early. Why, John, would they be packing up body parts?
Well, he got me. You know, for every answer I've ever gotten in all this research, I get 10 more questions posed. So if you're looking for answers...
Well, I think this, though, goes to a pretty awful area. I mean, you have not ruled out the possibility, have you, that we are, for them, food?
No, but it's kind of far out. I did make that statement once in an interview, and I've regretted it ever since because it sounds so outrageous. I'm not sure that...
Listen, let me stop you, John. It really did sound outrageous then, but you know something? I've been interviewing a lot of ufologists, scientists, scholars, people who have said things that when they say them, John, they suddenly hearken back to some of the early interviews that I did with you, and I'll say to myself, sometimes out loud, I'll be damned. You know, I remember John said that, and a lot of people guffawed, and here we are. I mean, a lot of that stuff that you told me, John, has been coming back recently.
Yeah.
And a lot of investigators, John, are beginning to go down some of the same roads you did. Back then, you were one of the only ones saying, look, these guys are not necessarily warm, fuzzy, nice people who wish us well.
Right.
And you were almost alone then. But now, let me tell you, John, more people than not are beginning to join you in that in that view.
Yeah.
At any rate, the Dulce incident.
Okay, now the Dulce incident I first heard about in 1986 or 1987 when I was invited to be part of a group of researchers who met at Crestone, Colorado, and we just traded information. And I was handed a letter by one of the guys who knew who had gotten this letter from a person who lived in Las Vegas, and said, "Why don't you research this?" And it talked about this underground base, and it was sounded so far out. But I met with this person, and she had known one of the officers who had worked inside this base, and originally told about the massacre at Dulce. I further heard a story by a guy named Paul Benowitz who lived in Albuquerque, who was involved in this, and he told me about it also. And the story went that in 1979 we had 44 scientists who were being instructed by the aliens in some subject. I don't know what it was, but they were being instructed at Dulce, and for some reason it was agreed that our security force, our Delta force, would not carry conventional weapons at any time in this classroom around this area. And for some reason, one of the officers walked in with a conventional sidearm, and the alien killed him outright. Now, how that was done, I don't know. But on the video, on the monitor, his compatriots, or the Delta Force, saw that he was killed, and they went down en masse to exact revenge, and it ended up that all 44 scientists and about 66 of the Delta Force were killed. It was just a complete massacre. So I just put this in the file. It was an interesting story, and it didn't come up again until Bob Lazar, who worked at S4, and we'll get into that later, read a report that documented this massacre. Now, the only thing different about the report that he read was that in the report he read, the massacre occurred somewhere around Area 51 or Groom Lake.
Is there any indication of how they were killed, John?
No, just head wounds. In the report, it was said that they died of head wounds.
Head wounds. Whew. Again, that's a lot of relatives who are going to be requiring explanations and that sort of thing. How was it all explained? Well,
now remember, this is just speculation how they handle it. We've realized now that most of the people that get in this program do not have relatives for one reason or another. Either they're orphans or their family has passed away or whatever. And it's essential that this kind of thing happen or kind of go this way because they don't want to have to take the time to explain away the death of a relative.
So the people who do these things are screened specially for this kind of work, which includes
very specially. Yeah. But they also have other methods. They can go to the family and say, "Look, we're going to give you a annual or monthly stipend, but this is national security, and it's for God and country."
And so here,
mention this again.
Yeah. So sign this, and it'll be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Then I think it was an incident that had a lot of influence on you, didn't it? Bentwaters in 1980.
Yeah, Bentwaters occurred during 3 days at the end of December. We have a United States Air Force base about 70 miles northeast of London called Bentwaters. At that time, it was I think it still is an A-10 base, the Warthog tank killer. And very strange things happened during those 3 days, culminating with it wasn't a landing, it was an appearance of a very weird aircraft witnessed by General Gordon Williams, who was the base commander, Major Ted Conrad, Colonel Chuck Halt, Larry Warren, and a few others. But at any rate, the incident did occur, but it was just a story as far as I was concerned. Many pilots had heard it. And in 1985, I ran into a friend here in Las Vegas, an Air Force friend that I knew in Laos. And he was transferring from the regular Air Force to the Guard, and he came over to the house, and we started talking about stuff, and I mentioned, I asked where he'd been based. He mentioned Bentwaters, and I said, "Oh, that's supposedly where that saucer landed in 1980. He said, "No, John, not supposedly. It did." He said, "I didn't see it because I was confined to quarters, but I know the guys who did." And he said, "I'll give you their names." And I said, "Wait a minute. You're telling me this stuff is real, that there are flying saucers?" Because at this time, I had no real interest in this stuff. My interest was in spy planes, SR-71s, U-2s.
I understand. What about your dad, John? I know your dad had great abiding interest in all of this. Didn't any of that rub off on you, or was it self-ignited?
No, because there was no proof. He was certain that they existed, and now that I look back, it's because of who his friends were. He was friends with General Vandenberg, who was first head of the CIA and an original member of MJ-12. He was very, very close friends with Jimmy Doolittle, who was up to his eyeballs in this alien stuff. But, he never let on to me, and it was just not a part of my interest. Sure, everybody's interested in flying saucers, but, unless you've seen one or have hard evidence, it's just not a part of your life. But in 1985, it became a part when Greg said, "Yeah, it's true, it's going on." Mm-hmm. And that's what involuntarily, I might add, launched me into this research.
Okay, so that was then really the beginning of your interest?
Right.
All right. In 1983, you have written Second Attempt at Public Disclosure Linda Howe, MJ-12, and something about HBO. What does all that mean?
This was when Linda Howe was contacted by MJ-12 in order to do a documentary, and they said that they would make available to her many, many thousands of feet of saucers and whatnot, and they wanted her to write a documentary that would be presented on HBO. And she contacted HBO, and HBO said, "We'll do it, but before we air it, we want a filmed interview with the president, his chief of staff, and his National Security Council saying that this is true." And MJ-12 essentially led her on a round robin, so to speak, of different bases and different facilities and all kinds of things for about 8 months. At the end of which, it was just terminated. She never heard anything more.
Well, that must have been very frustrating. I'm going to have to ask her about that.
There was no more contact, and only a few years later did she run into somebody who was involved in that, and they said, "I'm sorry it turned out the way it did, Linda, but we had no option." There was no further explanation.
Wow, strange.
But the stories she told me of where they took her and the things she saw was just absolutely fascinating. And, of course, Linda Howe is very articulate, very knowledgeable, and keeps voluminous notes. So, it wasn't just some story she was telling.
Mm-hmm. By the way, John, again, on the subject of Linda Howe, I talked to her earlier today, and she said she's going to be on the way to New Mexico. She's had enough. There's too much going on down there, so she's going to be on her way to New Mexico and will be reporting to us from New Mexico.
Well, she was the leading authority on mutilation. She did that documentary for the ABC affiliate in Denver in 1980.
Right, I believe so.
And then her and I, after the Crestone meeting, drove down to Roswell. And oddly enough, here we are driving out in the middle of the desert, just about 15 miles north of where the first UFO crashed. And we're on this little teeny road, it's a dirt road, about 1 million miles from nowhere. And I'm driving along in this truck, and we saw a dead cow. And I thought, well, here I am with the world's leading authority on cattle mutilations, and we see a dead cow. So we get out there, and there was none of the classic cookie-cutter incisions. But we started looking around, and we saw 3 others. And then we saw 2 others, and then I stood up on the bed of the truck, and I think we counted 34 cows.
Wow.
And so we went to, found the nearest ranch and asked the guy if he knew about the cows, and he said, yeah, he said they died of some disease. Well, Linda Howe checked in with a veterinarian on this, whatever the disease was, and I don't remember what it is now, but the veterinarian said, no way. He said, if that had been that disease, that place would have been cordoned off within 100 miles.
Uh-huh.
Just a very odd, one of those unexplained...
It is, and I've heard Linda Howe tell exactly the same story, John. So I guess that's the way it happened.
That was her.
That's weird.
And that was like in 1986.
All right. She's still trying to get it out to the public today, and that's, well over a decade now.
Yeah.
Then the Eisenhower brief, 84, leaked to Hollywood producer and friend of Bill Moore.
Yeah, that was Jamie Chandra, and one day he received in the mail this film, which was undeveloped, which he had developed, and it was the Eisenhower briefing as we've come to know it, and it was supposedly the briefing that Eisenhower got when he became president on the alien situation. It told the members of, it told about the Roswell crash, it told it told the original members of MJ-12 and what they planned to do with it. It's a very interesting document. Now, people say, and I say the information was definitely true, not necessarily that the document itself was a legitimate document.
All right. Then you say 1985, my interest begins. Actually, it began a little earlier than that. What made you write that, John? Why 1985?
That's when Greg Wilson came through Las Vegas
and told you the story about Bent Waters?
Story.
Yeah, okay, I see. Then 1986, and I remember this one very well. JAL 747 captain is followed by UFO 3 times as big as an aircraft carrier, and I remember that.
It was an enormous craft, and it followed him for an hour. He was on his way from Keflavik, Iceland to Anchorage, fuel stop in Anchorage, and then on to Japan. And about an hour out of Anchorage, at 33,000 feet this night, this thing appears in front of the aircraft. And it was not a passenger flight, it was cargo, and so there was only 3 guys in the cockpit, but they all saw it. Radar had it, returned to be sure it wasn't some gigantic reflection of some sort. They went down to 29,000 feet to see if it would follow them, and it did. And then after about an hour, it just left, and they landed, gave their FAA report, and other than a few comical news stories, ignored by the press, specifically by Aviation Week and Space Technology, who is our premier aviation magazine, didn't give it one word, not even a sentence.
Well, for all your flying, John, and the one incident you have had that may have been something like that, you must talk to all kinds of other captains, lots of friends in the industry. Do they talk about this, John?
Not unless policy and cockpit etiquette bring this up. Unless I've been with the crew for a long time, and unless it seems appropriate, but you find out that maybe a third of the pilots have seen something.
All right, we're getting up toward the modern day here, but first let us look at 1987, and particularly the Gulf Breeze sightings, because that's still going on, John. It's still going on. We're getting photographs. There have been recent photographs, one which is a very interesting picture. A lot of people are following up on that right now. And the same gentleman at Gulf Breeze continually seeing these craft. What is your assessment of what happened at Gulf Breeze?
Well, I first heard about it in 1987 when the Channel 4, I believe it was down there, put out the documentary, and it had Ed Walters' film that he took out the back door of this craft hovering behind the tree line there, just over the tree line. And it was tremendously interesting, as there was no doubt in my mind that from the videotape that this thing occurred. But there was so many people jumped on it as a hoax, and they just did backflips to try and prove it was a hoax. But
that's right.
In my opinion, it was not. It was the true thing. And Ed Walters just took a tremendous amount of flack over the years for showing this film and for saying the things he did. But I believe him 100%.
He's not easy to get as an interviewee. I've tried to get Ed Walters a few times, and he's somewhat cantankerous and not very interested in publicity. Is that your take?
I would be too if I had undergone what he did. I mean, he just took it was merciless.
Wasn't there something about somebody who supposedly found a model in a house that Walters had rented or something or another? I can't.
He sold his house, and the people who moved in found in the attic a model of what he had videotaped, made out of, I think he's a designer or an architect, out of some architectural drawings that he made. Unfortunately, the people who tried to hoax this used architectural drawings that were dated substantially after this incident.
Ah.
And it was just a complete setup from beginning to end.
Oh, well, and yet that and the guys who tromped around the field in England and any other story, weak as it may be, John, that seems to make people laugh at all this and say, aha, see, what a hoax. Those stories stick like glue.
Yeah.
50 people can look up in the sky and see a saucer or see a craft, and one stupid story comes along and it blows away all that good. Why is that?
Because the disinformation is so firmly in place after 46 years that there's just no way. They've done a fantastic job of disinformation.
What is the John Lear hypothesis?
That was the hypothesis that I wrote in December of 1987 when I felt really strongly that people had to know what we're here, and they have a deal with our government to provide help in the security and the secrecy of the overall program in return for advanced technology, some of it weapons, some of it other technology. And it was just something that I wrote then, which became known as the John Lear hypothesis.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, I've modified several of the views, but essentially it's the same.
So by 87, you were deep into it.
Deep into it, and that's when I gave the lectures at the Spring Valley Library, and that's when usually I think they had seating capacity for 300, and they never had a speaker that drew over, say, 40 or 50, maybe 60 people, and they had 700 people show up every time I came to speak.
Wow.
And it was then that one of the guys who attended the lectures wanted to borrow some tapes and came over to my house and brought with him a young scientist named Bob Lazar. And Bob Lazar had formerly worked in New Mexico at the LANL. What am I trying to say there? What laboratory?
Was it Sandia?
No, not Sandia. I don't know how I could forget that name, but he worked there as a scientist, and he just didn't believe in UFOs at all. I mean, it was a joke to him. And we watched some tapes, and I loaned him some tapes, and over a period of a few months, he became more and more suspicious, not so much of the evidence of the existence of UFOs, but of the strange ways in which the government tried to cover up or suppress some of the information.
Mm-hmm.
At any rate, there came a point where he had not been in the scientific community for working with it for several years, and he decided that he'd try and get in and see if he could, find out if it was really true. So he made application to, first of all, he called Dr. Keller, who he had known from New Mexico. Los Alamos.
That's the SDI teller.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And the father of the H-bomb. Through Teller, he was given an interview at ED&G, and over a process of, I think it was a couple of months, he was invited to go to work up at the test site. Now I knew that he was getting interviewed, but I didn't know when he was going. And then in December of 1988, he came up to my house, and I'm writing out some checks, and he's sitting in front of my desk, and I said, "What's going on, Bob?" And he said, and it was like about 7:30 or 8 in the evening. He said, "I saw a disc today."
Mm-hmm.
I thought he didn't hear him clearly. I said, "What?" He said, "I saw a disc today." And I said, "Theirs or ours?" And he said, "Theirs." And I said, "Oh my God, did you go to the test site?" And he said, "Yeah, I just got back." And I said, "Well, then what are you doing here?" I said, "Obviously they followed you and you're not supposed to be talking. Why don't you work up there for a while and then tell us what's going on?" He said, "No," he said, "you've taken such a lot of flack over this that I think you deserve to know." And then he launched into what he had seen during the time he was up there, which included a disc and some of the technology and a lot of the briefing report. And we talked for about 3 hours. As a matter of fact, it was 3 hours and 17 minutes, because when he got home, there was a knock on his door, and there was 2 security guys there who asked him to come along, that they had some questions. They took him downtown to an office there, and they said, "What were you doing at John Lear's house for 3 hours and 17 minutes?" And we had already cooked up a story where I was filling out a log page for his wife, who was the pilot, and it went from there. Anyway, he worked up there for about 4 or 5 months and would occasionally come by and say what he'd seen.
What was Bob's job?
Bob's job at S4 was he was a scientist. He was to back engineer one of the extraterrestrial vehicles. In other words, his job was to back engineer the propulsion of the saucer, find out how it worked, and find out if we could duplicate it. But he said there was only about 20 people, maybe 15 or 20 people working up there, and they didn't really have the resources or the equipment to do a proper job. And one of the reasons he went public was his disagreement of how the project was being handled. He felt that it should be more spread around, that people with the actual talent more people with actual talent should be allowed to participate in this project.
So it was very compartmentalized.
Very compartmentalized, as all things are. But at any rate, on March 21st, 1989, I was over at his house, and it was a Tuesday, and he said, John, they're going to test fly one of the craft tomorrow. Do you want to go see it? And I said, well, how can we do that? And he said, well, I know a place near Groom Lake. We can drive, and we can not be within the confines of the restricted area, and we can watch it. So he and I think his wife, and Gene Huff, who was the one who introduced me to Bob, drove up there, and I said, when do they test? He said, well, right at sunset. And it's always on Wednesday evening because statistically, that is the time of least travel in that particular area, Highway 375. So we go up there and unload we had my motorhome, and I had my Celestron 8 telescope, which is a very powerful telescope, and we were unloading it, and here this thing comes up from behind the mountains, and they're watching it, and I'm trying to focus it in, and very difficult because I had the 90-degree objective in it, and up is down and left is right, but finally I got it, and there was no doubt in my mind I was looking at a real flying saucer. It was kind of yellowish orange, and it was radiating something. It was glowing, and it settled back behind the mountains. And for all the people that try and discredit Bob and say, no, he didn't work there, no, he's just making this all up, the fact is he told me a day in advance exactly what fly within, plus or minus a month for myself. So unless you think I'm in on the hoax, he's telling he did work there.
Well, of course, he's been way out on, there's been no remuneration that I'm aware. There is some kind of a movie underway, though, isn't there, John?
Yeah, they're making a movie on his life story.
On Bob Lazar's life story?
Yeah. And it's, I think, New Line Cinema.
New Line Cinema, sure.
Is the movie company. I think they're well advanced in the project. I think they've finished the script. I don't know too much about it, but...
Have you been involved in it at all?
No, not at all.
Not at all. So, through all these years of doing the interviews with you, John, as you've investigated and I've done radio, I have yet to see you be involved in any profit aspect of this, and you just haven't gone after it, and I'm sure you could have. I mean, your name is everywhere in UFO journals, and you have been at the very center of it, so you could have capitalized on it at any point.
No, I just wanted to find out what the truth is, if that was possible, just for my own interest. I love flying, and that's my business, and I do it, 18 days a month, and then I have 10, 12 days off, and I go out and on my days off and take care of my lawn and the rest of the things I have to do. I'm not, totally absorbed, as it's very easy to get in this field, and your whole life is consumed with chasing down every little lead. I think I got to pretty much as we're ever going to find out, and that was enough for me.
All right. You were working flying then, of course, as you always do.
Right.
And this whole thing got you fired, didn't it?
Yeah. I was the senior captain with a very large charter company called American Transair. I was the senior captain on the Lockheed L-1011. I had been there for 6 years. I was a check airman. And July 7th, they called me to Indianapolis, and I really didn't know what it was about. And I walked into this room, and there was the vice president of operations, the chief pilot, an attorney, and a guy from human resources. And they held up an article that had been written about me, and they said, John, is it true that you believe in flying saucers? And I said, yes. And they said, why? And I gave them about a 10-minute summary, and they said, John, there's just no possible way that anybody who believes in flying saucers could be a captain for American Transair. You're fired.
You're fired, just like that.
I said, well, now look, I said, if it's, I tried not to involve the company at all. I said, how about if I just not give any more lectures and we take a look at this maybe 90 days down the line, and you can see that, I've been true to my word. And they said, no, this is it. And so they gave me 3 months' pay if I would sign a statement that I would never sue them, which I did because I couldn't afford to go very long without a paycheck.
Sure.
And I went to work for another company.
As you look back on your career now, John, How much effect, other than that particular incident, has there been?
I lost another job that I really would have liked to have had that involved the Air Force and NASA. It was a project that I really wanted to do, and I was actually hired by the contracting company, but they called me up one day, and the contracting officer and said, "John, I don't know what you did to irritate the Air Force and NASA, but when we submitted your name as one of the pilots, they said not only no, but hell no." And
so there's been plenty of effect then.
Yeah, I don't give lectures anymore. I never wrote a book. I don't intend to. This is really the only thing that I ever do is whenever you call, because you've been really fair with me and over the years, and it's just kind of nice to come on and chat once in a while.
Yeah, it has been a lot of years now. All right, so that's a pretty complete history of your involvement and of UFOs in general. I've got a fax here, and if anybody else who wants to fax us with a question, by the way, you're welcome to do it at area code 702-727-8499. And I'll give that number again. But here's a question for you, John. It's a classic. Art, a lot of people speculate the reason UFOs are kept secret is that it would conflict with religion. Personally, I think UFOs and religion can cohabitate in reality with no conflict. I'd be interested in what John has to say on the subject.
As you know, Art, I steer totally clear of any religious aspects of this, because all it does is irritate people. So
it really does, I know. And so I thought I'd just go ahead and get it out of the way with that question.
But the answer is yes. The overriding reason is religion.
Why?
And before we go to the phones, if that's what we're going to do...
We're right after the top of the hour, John.
Is what?
Right after the top of the hour, we'll go to the phones.
Okay, well then give me time to ask 5 questions and answer them to avoid having people call up and ask the question.
All right, good. Let's. You want to start on that now?
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
If they're here, why don't they contact our president? Well, I think...
No. The question is, if they're here, why don't they help us? Why don't they give us the cure for cancer, for AIDS, and all that kind of stuff? I don't care about the president.
I think we all know the answer to that concerning our current president, but let's assume we had another president. And the answer is this. When you visit an ant farm, do you just talk to any old ant, or do you find the queen and talk to her?
Huh.
Here's the
I'm not sure I like being thought of as part of the ant farm, but I guess I am, huh?
Here's the second question. If the government couldn't cover up Watergate, how could they cover this up for 45 years? Well, the Watergate episode was an inside job to get Nixon out of office, just as the assassination of President Kennedy was, but with a little more, but not much more, tact.
Weird.
Now, that doesn't mean I agree with Nixon, but that was an inside job. The fact is the government can cover up anything they want to if it's important enough, and I can assure you that if you are reasonably well-informed, that you only know about 5% of what there is to know.
I used to wonder about that, John, myself, but I too, have joined the club of you bet they can keep it secret. So.
Yeah. Now, let's see. If what you have to say is really true, John Lear, then why doesn't the government stop you? Number one, it would only add credibility to my story, and number two, I don't reach enough people for it to make any difference. The belief systems are too well locked in for me to be of any great threat at all. Without hardware, there is simply...
No, it's not that they're locked in. It's that believers believe that can be explained, whatever that's happening, with religious jargon, so to speak, and theology.
No proof, regardless of the number of eyewitnesses.
It's true.
Why wouldn't any of the astronauts or military officers come forward and tell the truth? And the answer is for the simple reason that all of us are dependent on money, whether through current employment or retirement pay, for our very existence. For an astronaut or military man to come forward with the truth would net him 3 minutes on hard copy and the rest of his retirement working at a 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
For what?
Yeah, I agree, although there was a recent statement by Neil Armstrong that would cause your teeth to rattle. Are you familiar with that at all?
No, what did he say?
rather than paraphrase it, John, I'm going to dig it out of my computer during the top of the hour, and I'll give you the comment, and we'll see what you have to say about it. It's fascinating. Anyway, do you have one more?
One quick more is, what about the news media, your Dan Rathers and your Tom Brokaws and your Ted Koppels? Why wouldn't they come forward and tell the truth? And for the very simple reason that they are glorified teleprompter readers. They have very little to say about what they are going to say. They can't come in one fine day and say, tonight I'm going to expose the UFO cover-up. There are just too many people over him with vested interests, such as the station license, to let him do that, notwithstanding the fact that all he has is words and no hardware. So we've got rid of those 5 questions.
We have, but without fail, John, I would bet at least 4 out of 5 of them will be asked before the night's over. Hey, have you heard this story about the mysterious ocean noise, the thumping or the heartbeat sound?
Yeah.
They say they think it's man-made, and they're sending down divers, and they say it might be a...
Okay, so this interview was done 1998. 1998.
A ship, you know, even thousands of miles away. These things do travel underwater, but on the other hand, it might be something else?
Well, yeah, I don't have any opinion on that.
He did it on his own because of events that we've just documented over the last couple of hours.
Yes, sir.
All right. Neil Armstrong, on the occasion of the anniversary of the Apollo mission to the moon, was at the White House about 3 weeks ago now, I guess 4 weeks ago, something like that. Anyway, Neil Armstrong rarely does public appearances, rarely has anything to say, but when he does, wow. What he said, and I took this quote directly from the NBC Evening News, was as follows, quote, and he said this at the White House, quote, there are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers. There are places to go beyond belief. End quote. Neil Armstrong. What do you think he meant, John?
I don't think he was a believer.
It sounds like a pretty powerful statement. You know, both Neil and Buzz Aldrin and most of the astronauts, all of them have seen something, and they've all seen incredible things. And they've been silenced by NASA. And over the years, you know, it kind of wears at them. They'd like to get it out, but they can't be as blatant as say, yes, I saw this, and yes, I saw that. So I think that's basically what he's saying. I've heard some of the astronauts come out very vociferously and say, listen to me carefully. There are no UFOs. Do you understand what I'm saying? No UFOs. And what they're saying is, no, there's no unidentified flying objects. They're all identified.
The astronauts, particularly the ones that went to the moon, the early astronauts, have all had big trouble, John. Psychological troubles, a lot of divorces, a lot of drinking, a lot of trouble, period. And one source of that trouble, one might speculate, is that they have knowledge that they can't talk about that's eating away at them. Could that be so?
Definitely. And that's one of the ways in which they keep this secret is through it's called pain drugs hypnosis. That
could be it, but it also could be that it never went there.
Where when they tell you this stuff, they give you a briefing, and it involves pain, it involves drugs, it involves hypnosis, so that it doesn't bother you that much, but it doesn't always work on everybody. And they know they have this knowledge, and it's hard to know something with this, you know, with the ramifications of this kind of thing,
and not be able to
tell somebody.
Yeah, it would eat you alive, I suppose. John, just before we go to the phones, you have said, and this really is very different than a lot of ufologists today, that you've come to the conclusion that while you were digging in earlier years so that the world might know, you now don't think we ought to know, or that we have a right to know, or that it would be good for us to know, or how do you explain that, and why?
Well, it has to do with religion, and no, people should not know this. This is something that is...
This was the most superficial thought that I heard the whole night, the whole interview.
Irritating is might be. It's none of their business. There's nothing they can do to influence or modify it in any way. It's best.
He means to modify it in a way that he interprets it.
They just go on with their lives and pay their taxes, find something they enjoy, boating, sailing, growing lawn or something like that, and get on with
That's his stereotyping of Christian. Just listen carefully.
their life, because there's no reason to know this, and if they knew the true ramifications of this.
Oh boy, was he wrong. I mean, maybe at that point of time people weren't, because there was no YouTube. But today, if you go the biblical subject on giants, on different awesome things in the Bible, like angels and Armageddon and what's gonna happen, it's all over and it's trending over social media and other websites. So he's just not informed about the Christian faith in general. And so he stereotypes. He thinks, he's convinced that aliens are product of evolution. He's purely materialistic, or maybe agnostic, or New Age deep down, but he's definitely not a Christian. He doesn't like it.
It would bother them. It would eventually result in the breakdown of society. So
The breakdown of society. How much do you know, John, without telling me what you know, how much do you still know that you haven't told?
not very much. I told you much of this stuff. You know, the stuff I'm not talking about is religious stuff, and if you think a while, you can figure out what it's all about. You know, it's. I told you most of the stuff.
But maybe not all.
No, not all, because there's a lot of sensitive, very sensitive stuff regarding religion.
All right. Let us take some calls, John,
Why don't
and
you
I
bring
want
it
to
on,
remind
then?
everybody the toll-free line.
Why don't you bring it on then? He's not ready for it. That's why.
Is east of the Rockies only at 1-800-618-8255, and let us venture forth. Hi there, on our east of the Rockies line, you're on the air with John Lear. Hello there. No, you're not. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning.
Hello, John. This is Kogo, San Diego.
San Diego, yes, sir.
Great show. Question, sounds like if the U.S. has some of this technology, that it really wouldn't be too big of a problem being confronted with other nations like Russia with their type of military. Do you think this type of technology can be implemented?
I think what was going on with these kind of people, because he's coming from a big background, his father too, and so even Bob Lazar, I think they are working with the government to expose all this the way they're exposing, just to add suspicion that the US government was and is in collaboration with high-tech alien technology, with aliens. So that could pause the enemies, you know, to think like, what may we still have, that it's alien but we control it, things like that. I think that was going on for most of the cases, like John Lear.
Implemented in such cases like war or anything like that?
All right. What about it, John?
Well, it certainly can, and this may be the result of the breakdown of the Soviet Union. Maybe we told them what we got and which direction we want them to go in. I don't know that for a fact, but it's possible that happened. Our technology base is about 30 years of where everyone thinks it is. When you look at the space shuttle and all the satellites and the neat stuff we got going, our technology base is 30 years ahead of that.
30 years ahead of that.
Just to give you an example of what I'm talking about 25 years ago, you read in the paper about talking rock technology.
Yes.
And what that was they put a rock in an anechoic chamber and gave it a pulse like hello. And the rock absorbed vibrations, and by measuring the vibrations, about a half a second later, measuring the vibrations, they could pull out the word hello. Well, in 25 or 30 years later, what they have now is a means to beam into a room and pulling off, measuring the vibrations that have been given, any of the crystal structure like glass or windows or anything like that,
Right.
and pull out a conversation that was held 7 days ago.
Wow. Wow. That's some technology. On our East of the Rockies line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning.
Hello,
Hi, where are you, sir?
in Leavenworth, Kansas.
Leavenworth, all right.
Hello?
You're on the air. Go ahead.
I was wanting to talk about Project Blue Book.
All right.
I was wanting to find out whether it's still being researched or if you've even heard of it.
Well, of course, we've heard of it. John, any comments on Blue Book? It is no more, or is it now going on below the surface?
It was established in 1948 or 49, and it was brought to a halt in 1969 by the Condon Committee. And what they said is, based on all their research, flying saucers did not represent a threat to national security. Now, they didn't go as far to say as they didn't exist. What they said was
They're not a threat.
they're not a threat.
Good point.
But project actually, the actual project was called Grudge, the research of different sightings, and yes, that still goes on. Project Grudge is an active project.
That's an interesting conclusion, to not rule out their existence, but state they have no, they are not a threat to national security. Doesn't make sense to me. If they exist, they certainly would be a potential threat.
Yeah. Well, they got away with it.
Yeah. On the toll-free line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning. Where are you calling from, please?
Kansas City, Missouri.
Kansas City, Missouri. All right.
Okay, what I'm going to say here has to do with the religion aspect, if that's okay.
Perfect.
With Mr. Lear.
Sure.
Okay, here's my opinion. This is just my opinion now, so this might not mean anything to you at all. But I am a Christian, and what I have gained from this is that this is just my opinion, but that UFOs have actually been built under the watchful eye of the Illuminati. Does that make any sense to you?
Yes, I've heard that before.
What do you think about that?
Hold on. This John Lear guy may have been, I don't know if he's still alive, but he may have been a Mason. So this guy is a smart guy, this Christian guy. He's challenging John Lear.
Choose your words carefully.
You see? He was caught off guard.
Huh?
It's possible.
For the reason to explain, do you believe in the rapture at all? I don't mean to make this into a religious show.
Yeah, please don't.
Okay.
Please don't. In other words, John believes there is a connection between religion.
Art was kind of too afraid of the people that he liked, that he interviewed, that they were going to be harassed or challenged by the callers. And I don't like about art that.
And UFOs.
Can he please expound on that?
That you would not find agreeable, and which he would rather not expound on, I think. John?
No, it's all the same to you. I do not want to expound on my religious views.
All right. It's kind of like when you say this, I guess we had to cover it, John, but when you say this, it's like putting a box on the table that says, do not open this box, and then just leaving it there, and everybody who comes past will inevitably open the box. And so they want to open the box. I understand that, but perhaps some boxes are best left unopened.
Yeah, right.
Right.
On the wild card line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning.
Hi, I'm calling from the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. And
Yes, sir.
I can prove right now that what Mr. Lear is saying is the opposite of the truth, because the U.S. government is not covering up information about the existence of extraterrestrial life. Government intelligence agencies have been spreading the rumor that aliens are among us, the UFO researchers, and this has been documented by Jacques Vallée in his book Revelations. For example, in 1983, the proven disinformation agent Richard Doty at Kirtland Air Force Base invited Linda Howe to that Air Force base and showed her these alleged secret documents claiming aliens among us. Then in 1985, Jacques Vallée and J. Allen Hynek were invited to Norton Air Force Base by some generals there and told that aliens are among us. And I think it's all a lie, and I have a reason for it.
Well, all right, give that to us. You said you had proof, sir, so go ahead and lay it out.
The proof is what I just told you, and you just get Jacques Vallée's book, Revelations. That proves that the government isn't hiding it.
It's got to be a book.
It's pushing it on UFO researchers, and the reason for this reverse psychology disinformation campaign was stated by Stanton Friedman when he said that a belief in alien life would cause people to lose their faith in the value of nation-states and lead to the acceptance of world government, which is exactly what the power elite to control the government wants, since their multinational corporations have most to gain from
2026. This doesn't seem crazy, what he just said.
Globalism.
All right, so there it is, John. He lays it out. It is something he's charging to lead us toward the one world government, that sort of thing.
Well, I certainly respect his opinion, and since I don't have any hardware, I'm certainly not going to be able to prove, what I say.
Right.
John, at one time, can you tell the story about element 115?
Yeah, element 115 is the power source for these extraterrestrial craft. We've been able to synthesize up to like 106, but there is an element on up the line that is 115, and by pumping protons into 115, it becomes 116, which immediately decays, and what the result of the decay is antimatter. And when antimatter is mixed with matter, it's 100% conversion of matter to energy, which is a very, very large explosion. What they do is they control this explosion to create heat, and also out of this reaction, they pull off the gravity A wave without going into details they use to propel themselves across the universe at speeds hundreds of times faster than the speed of light.
At one time, and you tell as much of the story as you can, or tell me to go fly a kite, but you had your hands on some 115, didn't you?
Yes, Bob Lazar had his hands on some 115. We did some experiments which proved it was exactly what he said it was. And I believe it was the evening of the George Knapp UFOs the Best Evidence. We kept very close watch on this stuff, but since we had it 4 or 5 months, we became a little careless and it was left out. And that night they broke into Bob's house and took it.
So you no longer have it, but that's about as close as you've come to hardware.
That's correct.
All right. On the toll-free line, you're on the air with John Lear. Hello. Hello there. No, you're not. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning.
Hi, Art. This is Randy from Leavenworth, Washington.
Hi, Randy.
I'm calling to ask Mr. Lear about the 3 different kinds of aliens. I subscribe to a newsletter, and it talks about all the government research, and the different type ships are different aliens from different sectors in the universe, and there's the reptilian form, the insectoid, and the human type.
The lizard people.
Well, there may be a lot more than that. John, how many are there?
Well, opinion, and this is only my opinion, there's about 70 types that are visiting Earth at one time or another with various agendas. Some of them don't have anything to do with what's going on here. They're just coming down to take a look. But they're all different types. And some of them, that if you had a chance to look at it, you would actually die of fright because they are so alien to what we are used to.
How's that, caller?
That sounds good.
All right, thanks. You would die of fright. Are they able to appear to us in a form different than that which would cause us to die of fright?
Apparently, some of them can do that, but according to some of the abduction stories, they hide themselves. You can't get a look. You can see their shape, but you can't see their face, and that's prevalent, if you've read John Mack's book, that's prevalent throughout all the abductions is they cannot see the face.
Yeah, it's true. I had John Mack on the program about 3 weeks ago, John.
Very interesting guy, and I really enjoyed his book. It was more than...
From hindsight, 2026, the one name where aliens are running like hell is the name of Jesus. The only serious thing that happened back in the 90s, like somebody got hurt, was a guy in 1996 that was talking about the Dulce incident, underground shooting that happened between us and aliens in Greece. And he was convinced that aliens are demons and demons are aliens. So, this John Lear, I think he was a PSYOP, double agent or something.
the same, but it's interesting stuff.
It is. You know about the incident in which some young...
I think John Lear was a researcher, private researcher, but because he was in those high circles, he could connect things and, allude to totally something unconnected.
Young lady apparently set him up.
Yes, I thought that was really disgraceful, but it's just media tactics. I don't know what she gained by that. It just...
Or what agenda, or whose agenda she was serving by doing that.
It was just an unfortunate incident.
On the east of the Rockies line, top of the morning, you're on the air with John Lear. Where are you calling from?
Fort Worth, Texas.
Fort Worth, Texas. Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Lear, you say there are things you don't want to talk about for religious purposes, but I wanted to tell a story that I believe is true. All the cosmonauts reported seeing these huge angelic-like beings with their arms crossed and a smile on their face like they knew something was going to happen. And that was before Chernobyl blew up. And John Glenn reports seeing something on Freedom 7 flight.
Yeah, it really is true. With regard to the angelic beings, John, I also remember that report. Do you?
Yes. Now, when they had their arms crossed and they were smiling because Chernobyl was going to happen?
Could be. Now Russia loves Bible.
Okay.
So there are such things as fallen angels, the Bible talks about. And Satan masquerades himself as a being of light.
Kind of an angel.
John Lear is so ignorant about Christianity, so much so that he hates it. He stereotypes it in a very bad way. He hated it, and I think deliberately his whole main focus of why he's not going totally out because of religion, and I think it's because of Christianity, it's because he hates it and he focuses on it. He proactively developed this.
What was that?
And it just suggestions after just like any other researcher would talk about things that he read somewhere.
Russia now wants Bibles in their schools.
Yeah, all right, ma'am, thank you. That's no guardian angel, is it, John?
I'd like to have.
I wonder how she could conclude that it was because of Chernobyl. That's really strange. On the other hand, I recall you saying one thing to me, John, that has haunted me for years and haunts me today.
Yes.
We have had a number of guests on this radio program about life after death. Inevitably, in every warm and fuzzy life after death story, people rush toward the warm, inviting light. Down the tunnel, into the light. And once you said to me, John, don't go toward the light, it's a trick. Go toward the darkness.
Well, now remember, I qualified that by saying that's what Whitley Strieber told me.
Well, it still bugs me to this day, John, because what if I had to make that choice?
Well, right now I'm going towards the darkness.
You are, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know. Oh, boy, that really drives me crazy. On our toll-free line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning. Where are...
Okay, I'm starting to believe. I'm not sure. I'm starting to believe that John Lear may have been one of those people that Malachi Martin talks about, that they were perfectly possessed people.
Where are you calling from, please?
I'm calling from Kodiak, Alaska.
Kodiak, Alaska. Yes, sir.
Yes, this is Dave. I've heard John talk about time travel, and I'm convinced that time travel is possible, and it's already happened. I opened those seals when I was 30 years old, and that, together with my birth date and the scriptures, unlocked the whole mystery.
All right, sir. Don, time travel. We've talked about it before. It's one of my favorite subjects. Do you believe time travel to be possible?
No question about it. That is
really?
Absolutely possible. You can go forward in time. Much easier than you can go back, but you can certainly go back in time.
BS.
I once wondered, and as have many people, and I'm going to make you tell me it's not true again, whether you and Mr. Lazar have thought of trying to construct something to traverse time.
Well, yes, we've thought about it, but it's a big deal. I mean, it's just, you just can't go out and make this thing. You need a lot of equipment, so that's, sheer speculation, and it'd be fun to try, but, we don't have any of the stuff, but we certainly have talked about it.
Just an idle question of curiosity, John. If you had such a device...
Incidentally, we were going to go forward, because that's a lot easier to do than going back.
That was going to be my question. Where would you go, time-wise?
Well, all you have to do to go forward in time is create a strong gravitational field. And you more or less just stay there while all the rest of the world passes, as time goes by. Then when you remove the gravitational field, you're wherever they were.
I see. All right, on my East of the Rockies line, you're on the air with John Lear. Hello.
Yes.
Where are you, sir?
San Antonio, Texas.
San Antonio, Texas. All right. Go ahead.
I've got a story about a friend, dear friend of mine. I've known him about 12 years. He's a retired colonel, and I'm not going to release his name, for he never gave me permission to do so. But he relayed a story to me and my wife about his encounter with a spaceship. Now, he told me that he was on his way to West Texas, driving, I guess, toward El Paso. And he and his wife had seen this aircraft, but he said it wasn't an aircraft, it was a large disc, that it went across his vehicle, came back, hovered, went vertical, up and down, and left and right, and then just left. And then he's an Air Force colonel, retired, and he's still aviation. He
up and down, left and right. That's like making a cross.
Flies private flights now. He said there's no way anyone can ever tell him that there doesn't exist aliens.
All right, sir. Thank you. Well, there's a story. It's true. Once you've seen one yourself, your attitude really changes, doesn't it, John?
Yeah, it really does. But, it's so few of us get to see those things. Now, for instance, I'd love to see when I saw the one that Bob took me up to, and I saw that at night. Now, my wife, Marilee, who didn't believe in any of this before, as a matter of fact, it almost split up our family because of my interest in this. She's from Mississippi, and she just didn't believe any of it. And here in 1986, I was on a flight to Frankfurt, and she and my daughter Jackie were out in the gardening, and about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and Jackie looks up and she says, "Hey, Mom, look, a UFO." And they look up, and here's 2 of them at a very low altitude, less than a quarter of a mile away. I live right near Nellis Air Force Base. They were coming from Nellis and went around to the southern part of Sunrise. Now, that's an extremely rare sighting to this in the daytime, and it changed her opinion. Of course, she says, "Well, I saw them, but I still don't believe them." But she did see them.
Well, maybe that was the sighting that saved John Lear's marriage.
It definitely was the sighting that saved my marriage.
I really can understand that, John, and you know where I live out here, and you know what I'm close to.
Yeah.
And I see things quite frequently, John, and I'm very hesitant to talk about them. frankly, I had one major sighting of an aircraft I told you about, or a craft. I don't know if it was an aircraft. But I see other things, John, in the night sky a lot. And now there are those who say that activity up here has lessened or gone away or been moved. Can you tell me anything about that?
Well, there certainly hasn't been a good sighting in say, 2 years. And so there's a facility in northern Nevada where they do a lot of testing. Now, whether they do UFO testing, I don't know, but there is a major facility up there. There's also an increased activity down in Holloman, which seems to be just the new secret aircraft we've got. But, yeah, there definitely doesn't seem to be as much testing as there used to be. Just after Bob and I started talking about this, you used to be able to go up to test site and see all kinds of weird stuff, but there just aren't any sightings anymore.
I wonder if it is the attention that's been given up there, and there's been a lot of it. There's a lot of people hanging up there. Of course, they're trying to get more property now and isolate the area. And there's a kind of a government grab going on for property, as you know, John.
Yeah, and I don't really understand what the big deal is, because like in 1980, there was at least 30 AAOs, which are air access only areas in the United States, at which, all this weird stuff went on. So, Groom Lake is just one of a number of facilities.
It has been a pretty intense area, though.
It's been a pretty intense area, and I'm sure they're going to get the land.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I've heard that the testing has been severely curtailed for the past year or so.
Too many cameras, too many people. On the toll-free line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning. Where are you calling from, please?
Oh, just let me get my radio here.
All right, get your radio.
Yeah, I've got it.
Where are you, sir?
KVI.
KVI. We're holding this for east of the Rockies.
Oh.
Thank you very much for the call and the try on the wild card line. You're on the air with John Lear. Hi.
Hi, Art. How are you?
Fine. Where are you?
This is Bryce in Wichita.
All right.
Hi, John. Glad to talk to you.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
It's been a long time since I've been in Wichita.
I bet it has. I wondered, are you familiar with the writings of Rene Guénon or Fritjof Schumann?
No, what's that?
Religious writings concerning...
I get a feeling when any caller mentions religion, John Lear is here. He's going up.
metaphysical stuff. How about stuff like the Tibetan Book of the Dead? You said you go toward the dark light instead of the light. Are you familiar with? Have you read that?
No, but that's an interesting thing. A dark light. I haven't heard that before.
Yeah, you got to read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and I would recommend people like you to get in touch with people like, say, the Dalai Lama, and talk to them about this kind of stuff and see what they think.
Well, all right.
People that are realized or that have studied mystical or metaphysical stuff that are in that genre.
All right, thank you, John. You don't seem inclined to really be pursuing this much more. In other words, my assessment of you psychologically is that you have reached some kind of inner conclusion, and stop me if I'm wrong, and you're kind of settled about it now. Is that right?
Settled or fatalistic?
All right, fatalistic.
See? And he blames religious people that nothing that could be said, that they would change their minds. But he's like that himself. Fatalistic.
Fatalistic. Yeah, I never in my wildest dreams, when I started getting into this, had any remotest hope of finding out as much as I did. And when I found out as much as I did, it was very interesting, and it was in one way extremely satisfying. But I didn't think that I'd find out much more than I did, so I continued on my life. And like I say, there's a lot of guys that just keep plugging along.
I know.
But I think I found out pretty much what's going on, and so I'm continuing my life.
And fatalistic is the right word. That's kind of ominous for a lot of us, of course. Laugh. All right, on the east of the Rockies line, you're on the air with John Lear. Hi.
Yeah, this is Kevin from KCMO.
KCMO, Kansas City, yes.
Yeah, I wanted to ask John a question on the time travel deal.
I heard that you can only go so far forward in time and so far backward in time. Is that true?
No, I think you can go both ways as long as you want. And to the answer of the paradox, if you go back in time and kill your father, will you still be here? The answer is yes, you will still be here because time is compartmentalized.
Okay.
You can go back and kill your father, but you'll still be here.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know.
All right.
I was curious about that.
Right. Thank you very much. In other words,
So he just nulled the paradox. Just like that. He says, yeah, you can do that and still be here. There's no paradox. I mean...
you will affect the local... All time is local. Is that right?
That sounds like a good analogy.
Yeah, all time is local. You will affect the immediate sphere or time that you commit this act in, but somehow time will bend back in on itself and everything will self-correct and you'll still be there somehow.
Whatever.
All right. On the east of the Rockies line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Yes, sir. I was wondering, will we be able to get a tape of tonight's program?
Yes, ma'am. Where are you calling from?
Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City. Yes, indeed you will, and if you'll listen, I'll tell you how to do it, all right?
Okay, I just wondered if you would.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'd be glad to do it. Sure, if you want a tape of this program, the first 2 hours we spent on a very careful chronicling of UFO history, John's involvement in it, and all the rest of it. You can get a tape by calling right now, area code 503-664-7966. Let me give that again, area code 503-664-7966. And on the east of the Rockies line, you're on the air with John Lear. Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Where are you, sir?
Erie, Pennsylvania.
Good. You're on the air.
WFLP.
Yes, sir.
Okay. First of all, love it. Outstanding.
Glad you're enjoying it.
Okay. For Mr. Lear, I have a couple questions. First of all, are you familiar with Guardian?
Yes.
You are. Guardian is legitimate?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, you're
I know
familiar
about
with Guardian.
Kessler. I know that he's a good researcher. I'm sure he's not faking all this, but, other than that, yes, I am familiar with the case.
Okay. Second of all, boy, I've been trying to get you all night. I'm kind of nervous now.
Oh, well, relax. Just try to remember what you wanted to ask.
I'm trying. Second of all, without getting very in-depth at all about religion, because I know that's a touchy subject.
Why though?
But do these civilizations,
the 90s, man.
Alleged civilizations, do they purport to be religious the way we?
All right, that's a reasonable question, sir. John, do these beings themselves have a religious faith that we are aware of?
Well, in answer to your question, let me tell you what Whitley Strieber said about that when he was abducted, and he's absolutely horrendously terrified, and he's screaming and he's saying, oh God, help me, God, please help me. And the little Greys are looking down, and they very coolly they said, why do you call for your God? There's only us up here.
That will certainly serve as an answer, no question about it. On the wild card line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning.
Yeah, it says God. Which God? They knew. But if that poor person had said Jesus, there's power in that name. And there are witnesses that did exactly that. And the Greys themselves, in those examples, in those witnesses, there were Greys too. They ran. So...
Good morning, Art. This is Jim in St. Louis.
St. Louis, yes, sir.
Mr. Lear, I want to thank you on behalf of everyone listening for coming on the show. Thoroughly entertaining.
Well, thank you.
You seem to be hitting everything right on. For people that call up, they've read a book, or they're real religious, they obviously haven't been following some of the stuff covered on the show. The cover-up, the military involvement, politics, everything. You seem to be right on. I respect the fact that you don't want to go into the religion aspect, because I've read a little bit, I think, of what you've outlined there in a couple of different books. But again, the astronauts, the whole thing of keeping quiet, people can't understand why aren't they talking about this, and that this stuff really is happening. I'm getting announcements on our station here in KSD that say, this is a warning, this is not the views of this.
So a lot of people are calling just to kind of like promote subtly their thing. This is one of them.
This station. It is shocking. It's very shocking. A lot of this is. Except my religious beliefs are simply, I believe above all else, above anything else, that there is the God, the creator of all things. And why can these things be happening? God takes care of other elements of nature in accordance with a plan. Why can this not be somewhat along an overall plan?
In the plan, in other words, yeah. Yeah, okay, all right, sir, hold on. Listen to the answer. Go ahead, John.
Interesting question.
What's the question?
Well, the question was, really, he walked around it 6 ways from Sunday, but he's asking, why can't there be the God we all know, and not we all know, but many of us think is there, who's in control and who's just...
Well, let me tell you.
I'm not properly asking. In other words, why do God and UFOs and the aliens have to be mutually exclusive?
They don't. But let me tell you a story that Bob Lazar told me. Once we're talking about the universe and the ramifications of it all, and he's telling me about the theory that the universe expands until it can't go any further, and then it starts contracting, and time reverses, and everything comes down to its original...
That's like the wildest hypothesis. Yeah, that's out there. It can't be proven. It's not proven. You can't even disapprove. I mean, you can't do anything about it. You can just say these things.
Size less than an atom size, and then start spreading out the other direction, whereas things only exist that travel faster than speed of light. And so we came to the conclusion, now, whoever made that, that's God.
Whoever made that, that's God. Okay, well, I hope that serves as an answer to his question. You're on the air, Coast to Coast AM with John Lear. Where are you calling from, please?
Calling from Youngstown, Ohio.
Youngstown, yes, sir.
I have a copy of a videotape by Bob Lazar. I was wondering if Mr. Lear was familiar with it.
Oh, he sure is.
And I was wondering if he could give us some comments about the other 2 areas of S4 that Mr. Lazar talks about the physics of time travel and the charged particle beams.
All right, we've only got about a minute, John. Can you do it?
I'm not sure what areas he's talking about. Yes, that they had both of those things there. Once, I told you the stories where the hangar door was open. He walked into the craft to do some work, and he was in there about 2 hours, and when he came out, it was exactly the same time as before he went in. And when he asked what the explanation was, they said because the saucer's time shifted.
There is a way people can get the videotape that the caller mentioned about Bob Lazar's experiences and his explanation of what these craft are and how they work. It is very educational. How do they get it?
They write to Corporation. Now, write the address down because there is no telephone number. If you call Las Vegas and ask for information, there is no telephone number. It's TriDot, Tridot Corporation, 1324 Southeastern, and that's in Las Vegas, Nevada, 89104, and it's $29.95. That's $29.95 plus $3 shipping and handling. And what you get is a 40-minute tape. It's called the Lazar Tape and Excerpts of the Government Bible, which is a chronological account of government UFO activity details and Bob's experience working with recovered flying saucers for the Department of Naval Intelligence. It explains the propulsion, construction, and details of where the aliens are from, including what Dr. Keller has to say about Lazar.
All right, good. That's how to get it, everybody. And we'll repeat that address down the line here somewhere. On our toll-free line, you're on the air with John Lear. Where are you calling from, please?
Memphis.
Memphis, Tennessee, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mr. Lear, it's a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you.
On discussion of after-death experiences, would you please reconsider and go toward the bright light, the white light, not the dark?
Sure.
There's another body of work known as the Egyptian Book of the Dead, other than Tibetan, and please research that.
Yeah, I'd like to say something about the Bible, one of the most important books in the history of mankind. The New Testament, like much of the Old Testament, is in many places a greatly altered version of the original accounts on which it is based. In addition, probably less than 5% of all that Jesus and his original followers taught is found in the Bible. Many of these changes and deletions to the New Testament were made by special church councils. The editing process began as early as 325 AD during the First Council of Nicaea and continued well into the 12th century.
The editing process wasn't cutting off pieces, it was cutting off complete works from complete bodies, like persons, and discard them or accept them based on the tradition, on the church tradition, and what was circulating at that time as known as true. That was the editing process, to complete a body of scriptures that was accepted by the body of believers. So everybody takes that for granted and just say, they were just changing the text. No, nothing was changed. It was just compiled.
For example, the Second Synod Church Council of Constantinople in 553 AD deleted from the Bible Jesus' references to reincarnation.
So, that never was in the Bible. It never was in the Bible. What? Constantinople? What is he talking about? The Bible, as a codex, was completed in one of the earliest church councils, Nicaea or somewhere there. So I don't know what he's talking about here.
Yeah, I just wanted to be sure that I got that about the bright light, not the dark light.
All right, thanks, John. Why the dark light?
Why going there?
Yeah.
Well, because according to Whitley, if you go to the bright light, you have made a conscious choice of which direction to go, and supposedly, according to him, at that point, if you go to the white light, the Greys, whoever is in charge of this thing, can decide what to do with you. Now, they can either send you back into another body, or they...
Now, what he's saying is not false. What he's saying is, when you go to the light, you willingly have to go through the second heaven, what the Bible says. And the second heaven, the prince of the air, is Satan. So if you go there uncovered, without the blood of Christ that will cover you as a believer, you of course be afraid of it, to go through it. It's not a coincidence why God at the last trumpet will come back with the shout of an archangel. That's a vibration, shouting is. And so that will create a safe place for believers to go out and to be harvested into the rapture. But John Lear is again off on this one.
They can put you in the black box. Now, the reason that I would choose the white light is I don't want to spend what Whitley says is anywhere from 12 to 40,000 years in the black box. He was in there and he says it's a very frightening experience. Now, I don't mind being by myself. I could probably spend a couple of years by myself, but I'm not sure whether I could spend 40,000 years. Whereas if you go towards the dark, you come right back into a terrestrial body, and you can continue on with whatever body you got into.
All right. Dear John and Art, this comes from Santa Barbara. Do you think there are any off-planet guys who are trying to help rescue us from this prison? Any hope for the future? Annie, Santa Barbara.
Possibly.
Possibly. All right. Tantalizingly, just possible. Also, this question, John, the Philadelphia experiment. Do you believe it really happened? Is there any connection between it and the UFOs?
Of course. Yes, obviously something happened during the Philadelphia experiment. Now, whether that boat actually disappeared or not, I don't know. But there's enough evidence that something very, very strange happened during that time due to the government's research into magnetism.
All right, and one more fax. This from Lawrenceville, Georgia. Jimmy Carter had seen a UFO. He was given a top-secret clearance. Thus, he was shut down when he became president.
Yes, he filed his report in 1969 when he ran for president. One of his platforms was, I believe in UFOs because I personally see one, and if I am elected president, I will see that all of the information about UFOs is turned over to the public. Naturally, when he became president, we didn't hear one word, and that's because the presidents are briefed to a certain extent on the problem.
All right. On our toll-free line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning.
Yes.
Where are you, sir?
Yes, I'm in Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I was listening to your comment about Delta.
Delta forces, yes.
Yes. I believe some of the things you said, but I think you might have your units wrong.
Okay. How did I have wrong?
For one thing, I don't think that 66 people were killed from Delta.
How many people?
I don't believe anyone was killed from Delta.
Oh, okay. But there would have been. It was a different group.
Yeah, I would say so.
What would you say it is, caller? What group was it?
That I don't know, but to come out of the Delta community.
He's a Delta Force.
It would just be noticed right here in Fort Bragg. That's too many people.
Now he may be partially right because he obviously was in the community, but there are certain parts of Delta which are unknown to other parts. So it's possible that you're correct, and that it was just a secret, very secret portion of Delta Force.
All right. Thank you, caller. John, from the state of Washington, is there any possibility that some of these aliens could come from beneath the Earth instead of from outer space?
Yes, most definitely.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Do you give much credence to the dimensional theories, John?
Well, I didn't used to, but there seems to be a body of evidence now that there is some kind of extra-dimensional creatures appearing here and there.
All right. You're on the air, Coast to Coast AM with John Lear. Good morning. Where are you, please?
Kansas City, Missouri.
Yes, sir.
I just got a question. Is Mr. Lear read anything, the Betty Andreessen story and her beliefs? It kind of pertains to the religious aspect.
Yes, I read both books, and, what more can I say? She definitely is very religious, and she had a very religious experience during her abduction. I think that whoever they are who pick us up catered to those specific beliefs.
Oh, yeah, that was basically my question. I didn't know if your beliefs followed along those lines, because they were sort of similar to the lights and putting people back in the bodies and that sort of thing. And I was just curious if you knew about that and if you had any thoughts on it.
Well, it's been some time since I read the Andreessen Affair, but she did have a very interesting experience.
Right. Yeah, I read the newest one, it's called Watchers by Ray Fowler, and it was pretty interesting. I'd recommend it to anybody out there.
We're going to be interviewing Ray Fowler again pretty soon on Dreamland, incidentally, caller.
Oh, that'd be really great.
All right, thank you. We've had him before, and I was neglectful. Let me do this now. We have a new affiliate beginning this morning. It is KKARAM in Omaha, Nebraska. So I would like to officially welcome Omaha, Nebraska to the network. And let's keep moving here. On the wildcard line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Art. Bob in Vegas.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
And in 1952, I read a book by a man named Gurdjieff called All and Everything. And there he talked about the spaceship Karnak going all over the place. And I went to Europe to work with the Gurdjieff group. But in 55, we went on the air with commercial television in London. And we had a couple there, and I can't remember their name. But we had a half-hour show, and the man who was interviewing them was really trying to break them down that they were phonies, but he couldn't, of course. After that, I invited them home. We went to dinner, went to my place. We talked about Gurdjieff and his book. And these people were very authentic. And I do remember the name. They were a married couple. And we went to a few of the group meetings in London then. This was back in 1955, 56.
Bruh.
And these were all what I call good, wholesome people, not phony, baloney type people. And, of course, I lost touch with them then. But I wonder if he's familiar. John, are you familiar with Gurdjieff's book, All and Everything? Where he talks about Karnak, the Gurdjieff Karnak.
I'm not catching the last name. What?
Gurdjieff. Man named Gurdjieff. He has groups that are working.
Say the name slowly, Bob.
Gurdjieff, Gurdjieff, Georgios Ivanovich Gurdjieff. And he wrote the book way back in the 40s called All and Everything. And as I said, then subsequently when I was with this couple in London, and I don't remember their name, but I remember going to several groups, and this was back in the 50s.
I vaguely remember that book, but I don't know enough about it to make any comment on it.
Right. But he talked way back then about spaceships.
Yeah.
And,
All right, Bob. Thank you very much for the call. We appreciate it. I guess not enough knowledge to really be commenting about it. You're on the air, Coast to Coast AM with John Lear. Good morning. Where are you calling from, please?
This is Tim from KST in St. Louis.
Yes, sir.
How you doing? I want to know if you could tell me anything more about the alien picture, and could you tell Mr. Lear about that experience that you had? And could you possibly tell me the internet number and how I could get that off the internet when you finally do send that up?
All right. I will. Thank you. Yeah, he's right. John, I have a young man who has what he believes is an alien creature, the body of an alien creature, which is now dried. It's pretty good size. It's very hard to describe, John. I've got very good 35mm photographs of it, and I've got a videotape of it as well. I'm getting them scanned and put up on the internet probably by the middle of next week. The thing looks, the closest I can come, John, is it almost looks bat-like, but it's not a bat. It's pretty good size. It's
pretty good
a couple of feet tall, 2-3 feet tall, and it is very, very weird. Now, without seeing it, it would be impossible for you to comment, but it supposedly came from Puerto Rico, where there's been quite a bit of UFO activity, hasn't there?
Yeah.
And so I will show you that photograph when I get a chance, John, and then you'll be able to comment.
Yeah, interesting. I'd like to see it.
Yeah, okay. It's just something I'm working on right now. On the toll-free line, you're on the air with John Lear. Where are you calling from, please?
1994.
Kansas City, Missouri. How you doing?
Hi, John.
Well, basically, what I was calling about is just throw out another theory here, if these things do happen, is essentially, like, first off, I don't really buy that some alien creatures are really buying, using people as food, because the simple fact would be easier to kidnap a group of people to and then breed them as cattle. Would it not?
Well, what about...
Are we being bred as cattle?
Who knows? Maybe we are. Well, anyways, some of the other things, like you said, like when they encountered them in Cambodia, and the Special Forces had to firefight with them, it would be a very good place to collect human bodies to study the anatomy, because you wouldn't have to worry about taking them and then probably bringing them back and things like that.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And truthfully, why are they so interested in this place? I mean, truthfully, we're in the neck of the woods, so to speak, in our galaxy, and what is so interesting for it?
All right. Why us is the question, John.
Why what?
Why us? Why are they interested in us? I could almost answer that. I mean, when you look at the Earth, it's a hustle and bustle of activity and growth and beings and intelligence, and it's a contrast to everything around it, right?
Yeah, well, my opinion is it's not that they came here looking down and say, oh, yeah, that's a neat place, let's go down and visit it. I think they created the whole thing, and that's their interest.
So they have an intense interest in following their handiwork.
Yeah, their handiwork being the breeding of the human race over 200,000 years, in which they made 65 separate corrections to make us what we are today, which they refer to as containers. I doubt if the experiment is over. I think that it's continuing on. Each of these separate corrections, they have to when they bring in the new model, they have to recall the old model, and they do that with mass plagues, floods, gyroscopic precessions of the Earth, which I might mention all this EPA and BLM and stuff about carefully burying our trash. Every 23,000 years, this Earth rotates on its axis and takes up a different rotation, and it essentially cleans everything out. So why are we so worried? We're about 1,000 years overdue for this rotation. So why are we worried about all this trash?
You're talking about a polar reverse?
Well, I'm just a little bit irritated because it used to take me 7 minutes to drive to the dump, and now it takes 3 hours.
Time for the big cleaning.
It's all going to be done for us. We don't have to worry about that.
All right. On the toll-free line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning. Where are you calling from?
Calling from Bakersfield, Art.
All right. We're holding this for east of the Rockies, sir, for about 5 more minutes. Thank you very much for the call, though. On the wild card line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning.
Good morning. Wonderful show. Sunshine here. I think that was Betty and Barney Hill, wasn't it?
No, he said 1955.
Oh, I didn't know when their book came out. Betty and Barney Hill.
It was after 63.
Oh, I see. Okay, my mistake. But anyway, they did allude to the time travel too, or the time span too, I believe, didn't they? I mean, they were in there for some time, and yet when they came out, it was lost to them.
Yeah, they had that same experience.
Yeah, wonderful show. Thanks for having it.
All right, thanks for making the call, and good morning. On the toll-free line, you're on the air with John Lear. Hello. That was it, I guess, John. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air with John Lear. Hello.
That was a chicken. Somebody recorded a chicken.
Yes, I'm calling from near Albuquerque.
Yes, sir.
Actually, in east of the mountains, about 500 feet from the Manzano test range. Sandia Base. I had a sighting here about 2 years ago in May. Since then, I've talked to 3 of my neighbors who have had similar sightings, a retired school teacher and a real estate agent.
You're not having some of that famous New Mexico Taos hum right now, are you?
No, I do hear strange noises once in a while, and they sound like a diesel truck in the distance or machinery clanging around, but some of it I think I'm hearing construction going on the base.
Now, was your sightings within the Manzano weapons storage area, Coyote Canyon?
Well, I was on the highway driving home, and this was a large orange glowing sphere that went over my car, and it was heading due south into that area.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of reports. As a matter of fact, when I first got into this, Paul Benowitz had just lived in the Fort Hill section there, and he set up in 1980 a videotape which ran 24 hours a day. He changed it every 8 hours, and he got some spectacular photos of dome-shaped objects taking off from the Manzano weapons storage area.
Well, I sometimes wonder if they're saying that there's less action going on up in Nevada, maybe some of it's moved here.
Well, it could be either there or Holloman.
I've also got 2 acquaintances. They don't know each other, but they have told me that they were involved. One worked for the contractor, and the other worked for somebody in the architectural design firm that built all these underground bunkers back in the early 80s out there. And they said that these bunkers were as big as football fields, solid concrete. They were huge, and of course nobody knew what they were being built for.
Yeah,
and there are no runways.
Yeah, I had a friend that went in one of those things, and he said that there was nothing in there, but he said it was absolutely enormous.
Yeah.
And but there was nothing in there at the time he went in.
All right, caller, thanks.
Well, can I ask one more question?
Yeah, very quickly.
Yeah. Do you think that anything will come of this Roswell investigation?
All right, and yes, Representative Schiff, of course, is off and running on the investigation, as you know, John.
Yeah.
Do you think anything will come of it?
No, zero.
Zero?
Zero.
Why do you think that?
Well, because it's a cover-up.
He was right.
Okay.
2026 hindsight.
They're not going to let some congressman go in there and find out what's going on.
Yeah, I suppose at the levels all this moves, a congressperson is not much. Lots of people want to talk to you, so back to the phones. On the toll-free line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning. Where are you, please?
I'm in Las Vegas.
Las Vegas. All right.
Thank you.
KWN, go right ahead.
Hello?
Turn your radio off, ma'am.
It's off.
All right, go ahead.
Mr. Lear?
Yes.
A few callers back, a lady called asking you about the Bible, and you told her something that Jesus said about reincarnation. What did he say about that?
He believed in it, and he tried to tell us that it was true, but it was taken out of the Bible by these council of churches.
He did believe in it.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. Really.
Really?
However, it was taken out.
Yeah, it sure was.
If I told that to somebody, how could I prove it?
You could get the Bill Bramley's book, The Gods of Eden. I think he discusses it in there.
What's the name of the book?
The Gods of Eden.
So that's not a proof. Right? You gotta take me to the scripture that you read this BS. He directed her to a different book that somebody wrote in the 90s or whatever.
Gods of Eden.
Right.
He goes into it at great length.
And what is that?
See, the question was, how can I prove that God, Jesus himself, said somewhere in the scripture that he was and believed in reincarnation, and he directed her gods of Egypt or something stupid like that.
Author's name again?
Bramley, Bramley, I think.
Can I get that in a bookstore, I wonder?
I think you can order it in a bookstore, yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for the call, ma'am. Have a good morning. On the wild card line, you're on the air with John Lear. Hi.
Radio Free America.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Lear. I believe in the Bible, and I'd like to talk to you about the Nephilim and how that could correlate into these things that you and Art have been describing, and also the fact that Linda Howe reported on these cattle mutilations.
Great point about the Nephilim.
That the maggots on flies wouldn't touch the carcasses.
That's right.
For days. Now that's something that seems a bit unnatural to me, and I'd like to ask you, throughout the Bible, there is a conflict of good and evil, and these things that you guys are describing do not sound very good to me.
Yeah, not warm and fuzzy.
Right.
John? That's correct. They would not be my idea of warm and fuzzy.
John, why do you think so many people, so many ufologists and people in the various associated fields want to present...
Too bad they totally skipped the Nephilim portion of the question.
...them always as warm and fuzzy. Why?
I think that because we couldn't imagine a advanced society not being warm and fuzzy. We figure, well, shoot, after all that... civilization thousands of years ahead of us, they certainly must have worked out their problems and just want to come down and help us and cure cancer and AIDS and help us get to, cure our food problem and all the rest of it. I mean, it's certainly reinforced by Steven Spielberg and his...
Right, but so that means since they have not given us cure for cancer and all the good stuff, they're not benevolent. They're not. God gives us eternal life and a better life here. What do they give us? More war? More weapons? Sure, technology, but it was military technology. You see what I did there? I lost a good hand. Eh.
Close encounters.
Yeah, it is true. John, a few quick ones for you by fax. From Alaska, a quick question for John, a paraphrase. The sheep know the voice of their master. Will we know?
No, you won't.
I don't know enough about it. I know that's a quote, but I just can't put it down.
Exactly. It's like when a Christian sees this, man, we see it in the spirit. In the spirit. I don't know how to see it. I don't know how to explain it. I knew he was going to say, I don't know. They're not going to know. We are God's sheep. We will know his voice. Hallelujah.
Together in time to give it decent.
Well, I can wonder though, or I get.
I didn't mean to mock him. That was bad. It came out bad. But, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yes, try and help him out here. The sheep, us, know the voice of their master. Will we know when that voice comes that it is that they are our master? I guess is the question.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, no.
No comment.
No comment.
All right, if it's not too late in the show, could you ask John about my guess concerning cattle mutilations? Remember, I guessed the mutilations were to garner the components of a medium used to proliferate recombinant DNA research.
Well, I think, yeah, that's speculation, what it's all about.
Yeah, one of the theories is that Satan, only 1/3 of Satan and his followers, 1/3 of the angel world fell, so Satan is in disadvantage. 2/3 good angels, 1/3 bad angels. And so what he does, he creates these Nephilim before the flood, and those are a mix of angels and human women, and they bore the women, bore the giants. Okay, so far so good. And they were strong, they had somewhat supernatural abilities. Goliath was descendant of those, but the pre-flood ones were huge. It was magnificent world, back then. And where I'm going with this is currently what's been done is a lot of the abductions have something to do with semen extraction. Book of Enoch says that demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, because think about it, they're part fallen angel, part human, which is fallen also, and so their spirits are not gonna go into the good place. They're stranded until judgment. So this is what they're doing. They're extracting DNA to create perfect bodies for them to inhabit the fallen giants, spirits, to inhabit these clones.
Dear John, since 1988, that year to the present, round balls of light have been hovering above my house day and night.
Oh boy.
This is not a hoax. I've been videotaping these round balls of light during the night hours hovering above my house within only a half block at the very most. Since 1989, I've been videotaping them, and I've got these videotapes. What would you suggest somebody with evidence of this sort does?
Just say Jesus. Trust me. Trust me.
There's not much you can do. Who's going to listen to you?
Just try it out.
I know a few people that have that phenomenon over there, and I don't know what they are, but
they are.
But they are. They certainly are.
Is John implying that the God of our Bible was created by aliens?
No. You're not going to get me into that now.
Okay. We'll
ready.
just drop that one and go back to the phones. On the wild card line, you're on the air with John Lear. Hi.
John Lear's not ready.
Hello.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is Art in Spokane.
Hello, Art.
And I wanted to ask John
the truly deep stuff he's not ready for.
What he thought of the possibility that the deaths at Dulce were somehow related to the introduction or the further introduction of the AIDS virus into population, and also what his feelings are about the government being somehow involved in the development of the AIDS virus.
All right, thank you. John, AIDS, what do you think about AIDS?
Well, as I said before, there's no question in my mind that the government developed it. The specific doctor, the Navy doctor that actually did the research, I believe his name was R.M. Donner. And yeah, we made it. What it was for, I don't know. Some people say it was to eliminate or decrease the population, but certainly there ought to be better ways to do it, because AIDS takes a long time to affect, and also it causes a lot of suffering. I think our hospitals would be overtaxed before it would start reducing the population. So when people say, well, it's just the government trying to reduce the population, possibly, but you think even they would be able to figure out a quicker way to do it.
Well, I know that there was congressional testimony. It's on the record, John, an inquiry of some scientists about whether such a thing could be created that would produce or suppress the human immune system.
Yeah, I got a copy of that, and that's what they got their initial $10 million funding to create that.
So that much is at least on the record. All right. On the toll-free line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, sir. Where are you?
I'm KOGO, San Diego.
Excellent.
John, I had some questions about one of the guests you had on earlier. Wrote the Montauk books.
Yeah. Oh,
Preston Nichols.
Preston Nichols. I had him on the program, yes.
Right. And I wondered if your guest could make any references to some of the things he said in his books, like the alien treaties or things like that.
All right. I didn't follow the Montauk books too closely. I did listen to Preston Nichols several times. All I can say is specifically, yes, there is an alien treaty. But other than that, unless you have a more specific question.
No, I guess he just wanted a general reference, whether you were familiar with it, whether you agreed with it.
Yeah, we certainly do have the treaty.
All right, one more stab at this, John. This comes from Veronica in Wichita. I'm a Christian, but not so arrogant a Christian to believe that we are the only form of life God created. As the Bible says, in my Father's house there are many mansions. Were it not so, wouldn't he have told us?
Oh boy, that's
well,
such a confusing...
somebody had to create everybody, right?
Such a confusing question.
Somebody did it.
Confused.
Some entity, something did it. I think most of us believe that a power far greater than ourselves had something to do with this. It's just too complex. All right, on the toll-free line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning.
Okay, hi, good morning. I'd like to say that just out of common sense on this one entity and stuff like that, there probably is, even if there is one entity, I'm not saying there probably is, but even if there is, and I go through life and have to go see him on Judgment Day, I'm going to appeal to a higher court because he's got peers. I mean, it would have to be that. But anyway, on this time travel?
Yes.
Okay. Time travel, the way you're looking at it, I think time travel back in the past, there's no way. You can see time from back in the past, but you'll never be able to travel it. You'll only see a light from it. And as far as in the future, that you might be able to do that too, but you'll never be able to come back to your own time. Just on, you know.
All right, Juan, what are you basing these comments?
Well, it's just like, okay, let's say the extraterrestrials. Okay, you'd be a fool not to think that we're the only ones in the universe.
Well, wait a minute. You are switching topics.
I'm going to explain that.
All right.
By this.
All right.
Okay, it's like planets and other galaxies. We can look at them right now, and what we're looking at isn't right now. It's time from way back when. We're getting a light from way back when.
That's true.
So there may be inhabitants on what we're seeing, and we just, the only way we're ever going to know is to be able to travel faster than the speed of light. That's the only way we'll ever know.
Which certainly can be done, and very easily if you have the technology, but I'll have to disagree with you on time travel. You can certainly go forward in time, and you can come back
Well, I'm sure you can go forward, but I doubt very seriously you'll be able to come back.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, we disagree on that.
It's just on common sense, though. I mean, I don't understand how you think you can come back to a time that you can go forward, unless you're talking about this gravitational thing where you hold off and you're thinking you go in forward in time and you're never leaving the time that you're your time stands still while you're gone.
Where are you calling from, please?
Everett, Washington.
Everett, all right.
Well,
John...
when I get my time machine, I'll come and pick you up and we'll take a ride.
Do you think, John, in your life that you will do that?
No.
You do not?
No.
Why is that such a quick no? I mean, if you had a chance, an opportunity, with Bob Lazar and others and lots of funding, would you endeavor to do it?
No, I think with lots of funding. No, there's very complex machinery. I don't think it can be done. I'm 52. I'm going to retire here at 60, and I hope to have, maybe a couple of years of tending my lawn, but certainly there's nothing I want to go back and see or go forward. It's an interesting concept. It certainly can't be done.
All right. On the toll-free line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning.
Morning, Art. Cliff in Glendale, Arizona, KFYI.
Yes, sir.
I was wondering if John might have privileged information that might give us a clue to our future. Have we been told anything that might tell us where we're headed?
I will tell you this, that in my brief career as a ufologist, I've made several predictions, 2 or 3 of them, and they've all turned out false. So I may be a good researcher, but I'm a terrible prophet.
Okay.
All right,
John.
All right. Thank you very much from Arizona and, of course, KFYI. On the wild card line, you're on the air with John Lear. Hi.
Hi.
Yes, sir.
Hi. John? Yeah. Oh, this is fantastic. John, I'm an old fighter pilot from Korea, and we used to fly the old F-86s.
Yeah, my favorite one, D's.
Well, okay. They were Pratt Whitney, and we do the Rolls-Royce engine.
Yeah.
And the only time I ever got involved with your company was when I bought my own jet, and it was a Lear jet. Anyway, we had a flame out at about 35,000 feet one time coming over Kansas City. No, I think it was Cincinnati. And they came, my pilot came back, and we got up there, and we said we had to bring it down to 25,000 feet. And we kicked her up again, and she flew like a real trooper.
Yeah, interesting.
Oh, interesting as hell, yeah. Anyway, the reason I wanted to call and get my... I'm calling from San Diego, the home of the tailhook maniacs.
Right.
Yeah. We're all a bunch of cowboys out here. But some of us are really curious about things. And do you know about Thorne? Rip Thorne?
No, which one is that?
Well, he's a physicist, a cosmologist out here. And we were wondering about what the heck is going on. We built we're involved in the accelerator up there at Stanford.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we took a whack at things, and my God, I got a million things to tell you.
Well, you're right in the middle of the action down there in San Diego, because that's where the Navy has a lot of their operations. And I could tell you some real weird stories about stuff that goes on down there, but you are right in the center of operations. I doubt if you could ever penetrate it, but if you could, you'd see a lot of real interesting stuff.
Well, here's what we got. We're looking at times 10 to the minus 33rd, and we're looking at, instead of black holes, we're looking at wormholes.
Yeah.
And this is a concept that Thorne has been preaching for about 10 years, and of course, I think he's a wacko. And it's a viable concept, a wormhole, and you know that we got a black hole in our vicinity.
Supposedly every galaxy has its own black hole, and as far as wormholes, I don't think that's how it works, but go ahead.
Well, it has to do with the space-time continuum, and I listened to Thorne. Of course, Thorne's an old buddy of mine, and at first it's inconceivable. If you look at the space-time continuum, it is a viable concept.
Yeah, I think that what he's trying to do is figure out how they can get from place to place without violating the speed of light. And because they don't have access to the real information of how it works, they invent stuff like wormholes. But the way it works is called the instantaneous propagation of gravity. Science doesn't know it yet, but gravity is instantaneous, and there's two forms of it, A and B. And basically, to travel hundreds of times faster than the speed of light, what you do is generate a very powerful beam of gravity and pull space towards you. Space is actually a fabric. It can be pulled this way and that. We think of it as a nothing. We think it as something that has just one hydrogen atom per square meter.
John, in a sense, then, you're not really traveling through the space to get from A to B.
No.
You are jumping across an area.
Correct. You are pulling space towards you and coalescing or uniting with space that's maybe hundreds of light years away. But that's why they invent wormholes, because they know that it can be done. They're just trying to figure out a way that it can be done.
I think I know the concept of a black hole. What's the difference between a black hole and a wormhole, John?
Well, a black hole is just a very intense, a collapsed star, which is not letting any light. It is so dense that it doesn't let light go through it. Wormhole is a completely different thing. Wormhole is what they're speculating is how to get from point A to point B very fast without violating the principle of the speed of light.
Do you believe it can be violated? And I don't mean by the method you just described, but I mean in actual speed travel.
No, I don't think you can go faster than the speed of light in a linear direction. You have to do it some other way.
All right. On the toll-free line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning.
Oh, good morning. All right, good morning, John. You know, listening to you today, I'm Susan from Moscow Mills. And
Moscow Mills, where? Idaho? Missouri. All right.
KSD, yes.
Yes.
You know, in the fear that some people have of what John is talking about, they must understand that whatever experience that we have as humans or humanoids or whatever, it's a very good experience. And obviously, whoever and whatever has created us and whatever use that we have for them, we have use for ourselves, too. And there's there's so much love and joy in life, opposed to the diversity, which there's plenty of that too. But the mind the mind that was given to us, and the spirituality that we have needs to be used. And I think that's what he's talking about when he says, "Go on and live your life, even though you have more information."
That's right. You get to do what you want. You get to make your life and have fun and do whatever you want.
Right. Can you tell me if there's in the other dimensions of what you're talking about in the 70 or so groups,
that's bad.
Do they show any sign of their own spirituality? I'm not talking about religion here at all, but of a separate spirituality or more intense spirituality, or just different, or?
No, I don't have an answer to that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for the call, and it'll have to be fast, but we'll do one more here. On the wild card line, you're on the air. Hello.
Oh, hello. I was wondering if Mr. Lear has ever read people such as Charles Fort and H.P. Lovecraft and people like that.
I'm sorry, what's the name?
Charles Fort.
Charles Fort and Lovecraft?
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
Charles Fort?
Charles Fort, yeah.
Yeah, I've read a lot of his stuff.
Yeah, that's what I meant. It just seems that when you talked about, one thing that I'd like you to expound upon a little bit is when you referred to that somehow humans were considered to be containers.
Vessels, even. I've heard that word. Where are you calling from, ma'am?
I'm in San Francisco.
San Francisco, all right. John, you've said it before. Vessels, containers for the soul?
Well, if we're speculating for the soul, it wasn't described in the documents that Bob read exactly what we were containers of. We could be containers of hormones, enzymes, or whatever. My own speculation is that we are containers of soul.
Well, it's I guess it's a good one, and I hope we do contain souls.
You can never destroy the soul; it goes on forever and ever and ever.
All right, John Lear is my guest. Back now to John and your questions. John, are you there?
Yeah, right here.
All right, by fax from Portland, Oregon, Sylvia, please ask your guest, who does the briefing of presidents when they come into office on the supposed national security aspects of IFOs?
Would be MJ-12.
MJ-12, which still operates. Who's been making the decisions over the years on the continuity of our government's policy toward IFOs?
MJ-12.
Who decides what the president should know?
MJ-12. And elaborate on that. Within the MJ-12 intelligence community, there's a great disdain for elected and appointed officials, which is why the president or the Congress or any other appointed officials don't know very much. Security clearances work like this. The lowest security clearance you can get is top secret. Above that, there's 28 levels of which is called top secret crypto, and they run through 1 through 28, 28 being the highest. Above that, there's 10 names like Umbra, Amber, Ultra, the top being Majestic. Now, the President of the United States has a clearance about top secret crypto 17. He doesn't know very much. He doesn't need to know very much. He's kind of a figurehead. So they tell him, you know, a little bit. They tell him probably that there's recovered vehicles and that they maybe have a dead body or so, but he doesn't know the whole story. He doesn't need to know the whole story to perform his job.
All right. John, this, and then we'll go back to the phones from San Clemente, California. Art, I heard that a nuclear explosion can actually destroy a soul. And I heard Mark McCandlish say there is a death ray that can eliminate the soul. Does John know if the soul can die or be destroyed?
No, it's my understanding that it can't.
Good. That it cannot. All right. I suppose a nuke would shake it up at least. On the toll-free line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning. Hello there.
Hello?
Yes, sir. You're on the air.
Yeah, I'm calling from Medford, Oregon.
Medford, yes. What's your question?
I know quite a bit about the UFO subject, and I've taken note of the fact that these beings seem to be quite interested in the human soul. I think Whitley Strieber said that he doesn't believe that any human being on Earth really knows what these beings are and what they really represent. Also, for your information, you know, when a moth goes to the light, you can grab it and make it easier to grab and do whatever you want with it.
Yeah. Do you like that? Do you like that analogy, John?
That sounds good to me.
The moths go toward the light, huh? And they're grabbed or they fry themselves. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning.
Good morning. This is Mike from KC on KCMO.
Yes, hi, Mike.
Hi. I have a few problems with some things you said, Mr. Lear. Scientific, but I want to address the biblical issue first. You indicated that the Bible had been changed at the time of Constantine. Is that correct?
Right.
Well, are you aware that the patriarchs in the early part of the 2nd century, in their letters and apologetics, had already included almost all the verses of the New Testament in their letters? Well, this is more than 100 years before Constantine. And so that we can find almost all the New Testament just in their letters of writing to each other in the apologetics.
Okay, now
and that there has been a copy of the whole book of Mark found in Egypt, dated at the 125 after Christ, after AD. And they when they calculate how long it would have taken to get that deep into Egypt, it would have existed before the turn of the century.
Okay, now the changes I'm talking about are 325 A.D. during the First Council of Nicaea.
I know the date, and I'm saying that almost the complete New Testament is already found in the writings of what we call the patriarchs, some of them which were disciples of John, in the first part of the 2nd century. And so if we already have the New Testament in letters written back and forth, plus we have a whole book of Mark found in around 120, in the archaeologists date of 125 A.D., then you have even secular historians agreeing that Luke, who wrote the Gospel of Luke and the Acts, was a first-rate historian and had to have been there. And so I'm wondering where you come up with this conclusion. Now, I've heard this theory before and questioned people about it, and they insist on it. But then when you present them with the fact that the New Testament can be recovered from documents before the time they say they were changed, they just kind of go on and don't discuss it anymore.
Well, they may be recovered, but they're not in the King James Version.
Well, that has nothing to do with the reliability. When you do textual analysis, it's not based on when the King James is written is based on the number of manuscripts and how old they are and how much they change over a period of time. And for the Old Testament, we even have in the Dead Sea Scrolls a good part of the book of Isaiah recovered that we find has changed very little with what we have today. I'm just saying your conclusions, you say you do careful research, and apparently you didn't know that the New Testament was known and can be found in manuscripts older than before Constantine was ever born.
That's correct. I'm just saying that they didn't make it to the King James Version, and that most people have access.
So these manuscripts still exist, and we can compare them to the King James Version. Now, as for science, I'm always upset when people talk about science, but ignore the fact that when they start talking about things that are supernatural, they still include it as science. And I'm going to give you one example. When you talk about time travel, one of our most basic laws is conservation of energy and matter. Now, if someone comes from another time into this time dimension and brings their matter with them, they have added matter and broken the law of conservation of energy and matter. When we, by definition, when something breaks our natural laws, we call it supernatural. But everybody seems to want to bring it under the umbrella of science instead of call it what it is.
Which is what, sir?
Okay, so we're
supernatural.
All right.
So where are we wrong here?
Excuse me?
Where are we wrong?
Where are you wrong?
Yeah, you just said that.
Well, I admit you're dealing with the supernatural.
That I'm dealing with the supernatural?
All right, I guess it's a semantic argument. He wants it called the supernatural instead of science.
Oh, okay. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, okay. On the toll-free line, good morning. You're on the air with John Lear.
Yeah, the heartbeat sound in the ocean is government work.
It's gone?
It's government work.
Oh, it's government work.
Yeah, I'll explain that in a second, but I just want to say something to John Lear. John, everyone around here says you work for Air America, and I don't want to go into that. About the sonar sound, 3 sentences. Thanks to Congressman Sam Farr, a sonar device that might have threatened the environment has been indefinitely delayed. The Scripps Institute of Oceanography and the Defense Department's Advanced Research Projects Agency have stopped the project's development in order to conduct an EIS. The $35 million device, part of the acoustic thermometry of ocean climate ATOC program, would be placed off the coast of Point Sur in the Monterey National Marine Sanctuary.
Well, I'm aware of the fact that they had plans, but it hasn't been done yet.
Wait, the device relies on the transmission of sonar bursts, blah, blah, blah. Well, I've heard the thing over the radio, and it sounds like a heartbeat. It goes boom, ba-doom, boom, ba-doom, boom, ba-doom. Well, Sam Farr, the congressman, thinks he stopped it. Well, 20 miles north of where they were going to place it, a couple of divers heard exactly the same thing. They just went on with it.
All right.
Big deal.
All right, thanks. Well, I say, as far as I know, they have not yet begun that project. It's been halted, and so I have great doubts that that's what they're hearing. But time will tell. On the toll-free line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning.
Hello, Mr. Lear. Your aviation credentials are certainly impeccable, to say the least.
Well, I think we should call it a night, fellas. Or maybe I'll just come back right after this by playing another game. Who knows? Who knows? Although I feel tempted to stay and just roam the West. Look how beautiful it is. Beautiful old town. There's probably some people here. Online. Maybe not. St. Denis.
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir.
Days like these are intoxicating.
Weather's always fine this time of year.
Where's the freaking cigarette? I guess I don't have it. Oh, there it is. Cool. How about we roam the world? Or let's go on an adventure to the moon. I actually need a hat, don't I? I'm cool like this. Look at him. God's a Dolce looking guy. Hey, buddy. Gentlemen. Don't speak French, buddy. Freaking American here. But we love the French. Oh, a couple of people there. Sir? What's up, brother? How's it going? How's your night so far? Hey. Pretty bad weather, innit? God bless you, bro. What's happening here? Not quite sure what's going on here. What's happening here? Oh boy. This Public execution place. Public execution place. Bit weird. This weather is bad weather. Whoa, is that a tornado? Bro, that's a tornado. Shoot. Yo, stop playing. Come on, brother. Get up. Let's catch that tornado. Let's go. There's a tornado. Don't need a tornado. Looks like a tornado. I want to be in the storm. Let's go. for other... well, that should be it. I'll see you next time, fellas. Thank you for sticking around.